Yeah, interesting. So let's look at a little of the history of the musical instruments and what part they play. The Sankirtan movement is basically, it is started by Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And the two instruments for the Sankirtan, which was started 500 years ago by Caitanya Mahaprabhu, was the kol, which is a drum, and the kartals, kol and kartals. Now, if you examine these, examine means you take a look at these instruments, they are what? They are, I don't even know how to speak about it in terms of music, but from what little I know and what I can observe, they are rhythm setters, they are pace setters, they are like dun 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 dun. It's just faster or slower, but it's just a rhythm. And rhythm accompanies, is the accompanying sound. Whereas in music you have lead guitar going ding 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 going all over the place, but bass is going boom 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 boom. Drums are going right? It's just setting the thing, and then you have lead guitar. Well, in Kirtan and bhajana you don't have lead instruments. Well, you do, but the lead instrument is the voice. In classical music in India, voice is the supreme instrument. Voice can set everything. The tone is at C, D, A minus B, whatever. Music, the tone. Voice can set the tone. Voice can set the rhythm. Voice can do everything that any other instrument can do, but every other instrument is limited, even a lead guitar. You see, a lead guitar cannot, let's say if there's a song and a lead guitar, it can set, all kind of like musical things within improvisation, within the beat and everything, but it can't communicate knowledge. Guitar can't go, I love you. The voice is, I love you. Right? So the voice is the supreme instrument. You see. So in Kirtan and bhajan, well, they're pretty much, any Kirtan without bhajan is not really Kirtan. Bhajan means the emotion, the devotion, the emotion within devotion, which becomes love of Krishna. That cannot be communicated by any instrument. Almost a little bit, an instrument can set like, it's a sad song, it's a song of excitement and celebration, right? But still, if the words aren't there, you're not really sure. Is this a love song? Is this a revolutionary song? Is this a death overture or whatever they call it? You can't understand. The voice can tell you exactly what kind of song this is. So for the musically inclined, you're kind of limited in Kirtan and bhajan. You're not supposed to improvise. You're not supposed to take the lead in any way. Other than, like, for example, Giri and Gorgopal, they made this bhajan Kirtan tape, one of the tapes they made. And in the beginning, they threw in a little sitar, and then it started just Kirtan. That Kirtan, that sitar, no place. I noticed, if Maitreya, maybe you're watching, Maitreya was, very, and still is very musically talented with guitar and sitar, but he just couldn't bring himself to do the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. He just wanted to be all over the fret, up and down. It's the music. So in bhajan and kirtan in the temple, your musical instruments, whatever it is, and guitar got accepted in the West. And a little bit there in India at the Surf Ashram, if somebody knows guitar, they might play a little guitar. In Mexico, I think it's always been there from the time of Prabhupada. There's films of Prabhupada in Mexico City, and then the camera moves out to the lawn in front of the temple or the back of the house, whatever. And there were devotees having kirtan with guitar.
Chical, I think, started that.
Yeah. Yes. But if you were playing guitar at Mangal Artik and Prabhupada was there, you might hear, stop that. Harmonium was never allowed in Mangalartik or any of these things. It kind of eked its way into evening artik a little bit because you would get guests. And the beautiful thing about these instruments is they set the key. For example, our beloved Vishnu Maharaj is pretty much tone deaf, especially, and so is Jayadev and a lot of other people, especially if they are singing and trying to catch a note, and I'm pretty much that way too. I'm half tone deaf. They can't catch a note. But if the note, the key, whatever you call it, the key is already there in the harmonium, then it's easier for them, and especially with practice, to learn to actually catch a note and follow the key. The key. Is that what you call it, the key or the note? The note can be set by, are we playing this in C or D or A plus or minus or whatever it is. That can be set by the instrument. And that sometimes helped a lead singer from going off left or right of the note, you see. So in that way, it's very good. But Prabhupada never liked harmonium in the morning. Now, you go back in time, harmonium is no more Vedic than the guitar. Prabhupada played it in his home. Bhaktisiddhanta never played it in any of his temples. Why? Why? Because the Sahajiyas captured that instrument. And they played a sweet song. And then they go into the crying. It's like, get that thing out of here. So it was banned because of that. At one time in Calcutta, I bought a small harmonium. And I was staying in Govinda Maharaj's temple in Dum Dum Park, I think it was called. And in the afternoon, I kind of unpacked my new harmonium. Devotees were resting. And kind of shut the door. My door opened a little bit. And I was just so softly, just catching a few keys. And Govinda Maharaj's servant walked by. And he heard the harmonium. And he went, oh, harmonium. I was like, the forbidden instrument. The forbidden instrument. And he goes, oh, yeah, I really like harmonium. He came in, sat down on my bed, and he goes, yeah, we always played harmonium in my house, and this and that, and all this stuff. He goes, I don't know why we never play harmonium in our ashram, in our temple. And I thought, my gosh, he's disciple of Śrīla Maharaj. He's been in the mutt. Now he's the assistant of Govinda Maharaj, who is the next acharya. And he's never been told why they don't play harmonium or anything like that. They just don't. It's like, let me see, why don't we play saxophone in our ashrams? It's just like, do we even have to answer that question? It's just, you don't play saxophone. You don't do that, right? Well, in Govinda Maharaj's ashram, Śrīla Maharaj's ashram, playing the harmoniums is like playing the saxophone. We don't play those instruments. One, they're not part of the Sankirtan, they're not Vedic, Bhaktisiddhanta didn't allow it, etc., etc. But you can see that Prabhupada played it at home, didn't he? When he was a householder. He didn't just suddenly learn to play the harmonium when he came to America. He played the harmonium at home, but never in the temple. Just in, playing harmonium, singing himself, And if you see, I think they call it riffs. Every once in a while, Prabhupada is doing a little music there with the thing. But not so much that it's distracting from the Kirtan. So those of you who do play a musical instrument like the guitar, first it should be pretty much how Babaji does it. Just the 3 or the 4 chords that just accompany. It's almost like it sets 2 things. It sets the key that you're playing in. And then after that, it's just a rhythm instrument. It's a rhythm instrument with a key, whereas a drum is simply rhythm. It doesn't set the key. The singer sets it. So, now, if we ever got together a nice bhajana group with tabla and sitar and guitar and flute and the whole thing like that for the public presentation, then your musical ability can come more into play and more into service. It's just like if you're a dancer. Shamla's a dancer, right? But if you have a kirtan, we don't expect her to jump out in the middle of the floor and start doing all the fancy footwork and spinning around and whoosh, the dress up in the air and all that stuff, it'd be like, wait a minute, you know. So when she dances in Kirtan, it has to be more simple, you know. We're not the wild dancers in our mission anywhere. India here, Estados Unidos, nowhere. We're the old folks, humble waddlers, you know. We just waddle back and forth a little bit. You're not running up and down the floor and spinning in circles and jumping up off the chair and landing on top of everybody. Yeah. Believe me, I mean, how that goes on, I never know. Even when dancing got a little bit out of control in the 70s, Śrīla Prabhupada nipped it. It's a distraction. It's just wild, frenzic. Dancing is just a distraction. There came a time you go on the street in New York to join the Sankirtan party, and look up ahead, you'd see all these bobbing butts, you know? And you get up there and the Kirtan would be facing in a circle, and all the people would see was the backside of the devotees bopping up and down. You know, I call it bobbing butts. You know? And they're all looking at each other, going like this, and the people are like, somebody die in that circle or what? And when he changed things, later, a few months later, one devotee, Kirtanananda Swami, wrote a letter. He said, well, Prabhupada, since we stopped the enthusiastic dancing, the kirtans are not as ecstatic. So he wrote back and said, never mind ecstatic. What do you mean ecstatic? Ecstasy. There's never been an ecstasy kirtan. I don't know if there's ever been one. After, you know, a few special kirtans where there were very special people involved and things like that. It's a cheap word. Oh man, that was ecstatic. Oh really? When that's ecstatic, you won't be able to get up and drive your car that same day. It's like, these are cheap words. Oh, ecstatic. They become just, you know, oh yeah, that was ecstatic kirtan, you know. You see how the girls were looking at me when I was playing the fancy doodah in the dark? You see that? The guys going like this, spinning back and forth. Follow their history, where these boys end up. Not that being a householder is bad, but usually it's just a big show. A big show. So, any musical instrument, we should limit them in the main bhajans and kirtans. I love like the campfire kirtan. That's where, you know, you don't always have to sing the Panchatattva mantra first. You know, they're, I call them the campfire kirtans, you know, a little bit. But even there, you don't, it's just, if you're really into kirtan and bhajan, what are you doing? You're worshiping Krishna through the holy name. You don't need any of these other musical distractions going here and there. So it's up to, Babaji's the maestro of the musical end of the community here. And so it's up for you to teach the other people who have musical abilities, whoever. I don't know, there's not that many of us here with musical abilities, but the musical instrument is to accompany and not distract. It doesn't need to improvise. Just catch the rhythm and the note, and however many chords or whatever it is, notes that you play with that. I think a chord kind of just sets the overall tone, but a note may go like, if I love you, ding dong ding, you know, it goes with that. But when it separates from that and just plays off a little do-do-do-do on the side, that is a distraction. If someone is really listening to the holy name, it's like, what, somebody ring a doorbell? What was that sound? Understand? It just kind of goes off. So in the beginning, that even might be part of our enthusiasm. But that also has to be channeled, our enthusiasm. In the beginning of the Sankirtan movement in the West, devotees, they were so enthused, they wanted to shout something, right? They're doing Kirtan in the street and all the people walking by. Well, they're shouting Hare Krishna, but they wanted to shout something. So Vishnu John Swami introduced back to home, back to Godhead. Kirtan be going on, you know, drums and kartals, and it would stop for a second and just be going on, and then he'd be going, back to home, back to Godhead, and 30 devotees singing, back to home, back to Godhead. Well, you know, that little bit of sound doesn't benefit anybody. So then they asked Prabhupada, is there anything we can shout? What was the answer? Hari Bol. Follow the history of that little thing. Yes, you can shout Hari Bol. Then that became whole kirtans. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Going on, you know, Jai Gauranga, Jai Gauranga, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. It's like, limit that to a minute part. I'd say less than a 5% of any kirtan. If it went for an hour, it's just a little piece. Because the most benefit for you, for me, the chanter, the hearer, the trees even, and everybody is the mahā-mantra. Now, some people also limited Panchatattva mahā-mantra. Like in ISKCON, they passed this law only 2 times, or 3.
No, three times.
3 times.
Yeah.
I've been in Panchatattva kirtans in the Gaudiya Math that lasted 45 minutes. It is the Panchatattva mahā-mantra, you know. Well, someone will say, well, Bhaja Gauranga, if you chant Gauranga, yes, that is Krishna's name, Gauranga, right? But what is most beneficial for all living beings is the mahā-mantra, not even just a Gauranga kirtan. Now there's also this kirtan, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Sham, Sham Sham, Radhe Radhe. But that is not for the public. That is not for the beginner devotees. That is sometimes chanted by people like Krishnadas Babaji. Then younger people pick that up, and they start chanting it as a matter of, like, sadhana kirtan. That is not sadhana kirtan. That is realized kirtan. And if we want to reach the platform of understanding that the mahā-mantra is Radha and Krishna and Radha Sham, just chant Hare Krishna. And in this life, if we do that all properly, we'll develop that level of appreciation. But that doesn't mean that okay, now I will chant that. Very rare, but that is also a kirtan. But I noticed in time, some devotees in ISKCON picked that up from somewhere in Gaudiya Math or something. Nimbarka. Yeah, a lot of other people do this stuff too, which is, you know, you'll never hear Prabhupada singing that. You never hear Śrīla Narasiṅgha singing that. You never saw Puri Maharaj singing that. Now, what do we care about singing that? Just to, you know, fill up our day with a little bit more music. Some of our talents we can use, you know, surfing, biking, painting, Mother Dear Lalita painting, you know. But every picture of Krishna is different. So which one is Krishna? None of them. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder only. And some of the pictures of Krishna that are out there on the internet by both Hindus and Western people, they're just, don't tell me that's Krishna. Get that picture out of here. That is no more a picture of Krishna than a frog. In fact, Vishnu Maharaj is in one of the pictures of Krishna. I'm in another one. Famous pictures in the books, right? I didn't play Krishna, but Gorgopal played Mahaprabhu, and it looked exactly like Gorgopal. I told him, you got to change that picture, man.
Chaitya Guru is Yamaraj.
Huh?
Chaitya Guru is Yamaraj.
Chaitya Guru looks like Yamaraj on the cover of Giri Maharaj's Upanishad commentary. So if you know the people, then we go, yeah, that's so-and-so's daughter, yeah. Oh yeah, those girls in this picture, they were in the Brahmacharini ashram in LA. And Krishna was being played by somebody else because they pose in the position, what they want to draw. Take a picture, everybody goes home, and the artist puts the picture there and gets the positioning. And it's a modern technique. They don't just like invent all this out of their head. They have models. They start with models usually. Understand? So if you know who are the models, sometimes they look like that. Right? But all the pictures of Krishna are different. They're not two that are the same, especially if you use Western art style. The Indian art style controls that a lot. It tells you how wide the eyes are apart, how long the nose is for Krishna, then for Vishnu. If you're painting a king, if you're painting a devotee, a saint, there are proportions where the top of the ear is in relation to the eye, and what's the distance, and all this, depending on this, the forehead and everything. So you start to get a consistency. But in Western art, there's too much freedom of the brush, and a lot of times you get lust painted into the painting, not divinity. Oh yeah, it's blue and a peacock. Great. It takes more than that to paint Krishna. So, although these are windows to the spiritual world, some of them are a little foggy. It's a little foggy out there, you know. They're not pure representations. And there's a whole history of what happened in art and how the artists from LA, they went off to, where'd they go? They went to Italy,
Florence. Yeah.
Florence, you know, European art, Da Vinci, you know, all this stuff. And at that time, the pictures of Krishna went downhill, in my opinion, and they took on more of a human aspect. They took on more of a lustful aspect, and so many things. So, if you look at the earliest pictures, which Śrīla Prabhupāda proved, some of them are almost childish. They're almost childish. In that first Krishna book, they're almost childish, right? But what is childish? It's a lack of material desire. Innocence, a lack of lust. You don't see lust in little children. That comes in at a certain age. Desire, sex desire, lust, desire for prestige, recognition. That's not there in children. Even the most, you know, rascal children, there's an innocence about them. So in that way, the paintings looked more childish. There was a certain innocence about them. But some of them were just absolutely horrible. You know? And I saw a picture, and another thing, if the paintings don't follow the śāstra, you get all the paintings of Mother Yasoda. She looks about 24 years old, just got married, jet black hair. When Krishna appeared, Mother Yasoda was about 53 years old. She had grayish, very grayish hair, chubby. Nanda Maharaj had a very grayish, speckled hair and beard. You know, when you see a picture of Nanda Maharaj, it looks like he's, you know, the high school champion, you know, this buff-looking guy and sharp, you know. They were old. He was in his 60s. Mother Yasoda was in her 50s. But the artists paint them as if they were young because they're not paying attention. They're getting too much into their thing and not enough into just following the thing. So that's there in art, music. I mean, some people have the talent for business. All talents can be used in Krishna's service, pretty much. If you say, well, I'm a butcher, well, you have to stop butchering and start chopping vegetables. Cooking, everything can be used in Krishna's service. But nothing should take away from Krishna's service. And in Kirtan and bhajana, well, lesser things can be used there in Krishna's service. Sometimes devotees pick up, I noticed sometimes Janardhan, he loves to hear kirtans, but he sometimes picks up some melodies that right out the sahajis. You know, they're just done by these pratishta organizations. And sometimes they're really hard to follow if you're not really good at music. Understand? So we should be cautious about what we pick up from the internet. There's a lot of nonsense out there, everything from proving the world is flat. Like Gary sent me a nice little thing that said, the proof of the world is flat and not round, right? He sent me this little thing, is that all your shoes are flat on the bottom because the world is flat. But pass that around. If the world was round, then your shoes would be round so you could walk on it. Look at that. If the world is, if Earth isn't flat, then you would have rounded shoes. So then there's, you know, everything about politics, about this, about that. So the internet's a great source of knowledge, great source of information. But you have to be careful no matter what, because there's a lot of quack science, a lot of quack knowledge, and there's a lot of sahajiism, and a lot of just stuff that really isn't required and doesn't really help our devotional service at all. There's just so much stuff that is of no interest. So I think enough said on that. Yeah. So those of you who are into the music, it's much appreciated, but you know, get a little bit of a handle on where the music part is sleepy and where the music part can actually be, you know, like for the public and things, that might be a little bit more music available there.
When I was in Krishna-lila, you know, Akanda Kirtan group with Indra, I was taking lessons from Bablu from Mayapur. Very
Bablu,
the
Mṛdaṅga teacher.
Yeah, the Krishna-lila Gurukul teacher, Mṛdaṅga teacher. And he told me that there was some sampradāyas of Mṛdaṅga also.
not really. That's where people, the sampradāyas, there are more than one sampradāya, right? But that's Bengal.
Yeah.
That's just like, yeah, there's sampradāya guitar here in Mexico too. Did you ever listen to Paco play? He's from Spain.
Yeah.
Paco? Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these guys is incredible, but Paco would just be a tremendous distraction in a kirtan. So you see that, you know. The drum is a great place to work out your passion, you know. You got these young boys passionate as anything. They're just, you know, kind of like busting out and they're just whooping that drum, you know. None of this is necessary. So, yeah, there are no real paramparas.
He said that Narottam Das Thakur was one.
Oh, everybody wants to quote Narottam Das Thakur. How about everything else Narottam Das Thakur did? His renunciation, his devotion to his japa beads. They make it out like he was just singing all the time, like some classical singer, like a bow or something. You know, like, you know.
Just going around
It's just like Prabhupada, Jayatirtha was once arguing with Prabhupada about sannyas. And he said, oh, but Bhaktivinoda was not a sannyasi. And Prabhupada said, you're not Bhaktivinoda. He said, my guru was a sannyasi, therefore I am a sannyasi. There's parampara for you. You want to quote parampara, you know, people run from that one like a forest fire, you know, right? So, you know, people want to, oh, Narottam, right? Yeah. But do they have a fraction of the surrender of Narottam? This thing doesn't seem to be working.
It's going on. No, yes. Most of the time's on.
Yeah. So in a place like Bengal, but you go to North India, you won't hear about anything about the parampara, the coal. They don't play the coal in North India. They play the Mṛdaṅga. And if you want to play the tabla, well, that's a Persian instrument. It's not, the tabla's not from India. Harmonium's not from India. Guitar's not from India. There's so many things. The stringed instrument from India is the, what's it called? The veena. The veena. No, not the sitar. But for the Sankirtan movement, I mean, it was only Kartal Mṛdaṅga is what Śrīla Prabhupada introduced. Then around 1972 or 73, devotees started preaching, doing Kirtan on college campuses. And I forget, there was even, so they wanted to introduce a few instruments, the Radha Damodar party. And there was some correspondence about that. And the Prabhupada said, yes, it's all right, but not in the temples. So what you perform for the public, not perform, but what you do for the public, that is to make Krishna consciousness interesting for the public. Right. Like I never could get my head around distributing khichdi as prasad. It's khichdi, this goop on a plate. Give somebody this, you know, goop on a plate. It's like, no, samosa or simply wonderful. That's really nice, you know, with a chutney. That's opulent, you know. But you don't eat simply wonderfuls every day. You don't eat samosas every day. But in the temple, khichdi, ashram, that's great, you know, simple, nourishing, complete food. It's we call sadhu. What do they call it in India? Sadhu makhan. Butter. Khichdi is the butter of the ashram. It's, you know, and a really good khichdi, like if you can ever get Vishnu Maharaj to make a khichdi, he made khichdi for me every day for years. And when the ashram first started in Govindaji Gardens, there was khichdi every day except Ekadasi. And one day, I hear somebody go, Maharaj, you know, and I come out of my room, and there are all these householders standing out there. They got their kids, and there was Jayadev, and the other Swami, Bhakti, all. I forget the different devotees that were there, and they said, oh, we have a request. And I was like, God, it was like a mutiny, you know, a revolution. And they said, could we have something else every day besides khichdi? So, you know, it's not working. Adios, amigos. For the public, we may make fancier everything, you see. But not so much so. I'll give you a good example. Koki. Now, Koki, Manjari. Did you study music in college?
No, didn't go to college.
They did. They were studying music. They were really into the music. She's a singer or whatever they were doing. And he went to and they were, you know, or he was particularly at the time first, interested in Krishna consciousness. Consciousness of Krishna and all the pieces and parts, the knowledge, the lifestyle, everything. He was interested in that. And at their local temple where they lived, the ISKCON temple, what group came? Was it Vyasaki's group?
No, it was the Mayapuris.
Oh, Mayapuris. You know, the Mayapuris came, you know.
I know.
And pretty much, he thought the whole thing was disgusting. Because it was all about pratishta. All about, you know, getting the attention of the audience.
In the t-shirts up here.
Yeah.
Showed the muscles.
Showing off your tats.
Yeah.
Man, I got tats. Cute. Tats are cool, but, you know, you don't need to go showing off your tats in the temple. You know, we keep them to yourself, you know. All right, so next, another question. Jagat?
This is more of a not as much of a question, but I wanted to see if you could speak more on something you mentioned in class last time in Guanajuato. You're saying Krishna and devotion exist eternally, and that the personification of this devotion is Radha. So is this saying that we as Jiva souls are a collection, as a collection we are, Rādhārāṇī is a collection of all of Jivas?
No, that's just like the sun is not a collection of all the sunlight, is it? It's not a collection. This light did not make the sun. The sun made the light. Clear? Sun made the light. Now there's light in the sun. But this sun over here, this sunlight over here is a product of the sun. So overall, living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, just like sun rays are part of the sun. But they don't make the sun. The sun emanates those. So all living beings emanate from Krishna. And they are categorized in such a way that you could say, not to the public, but you could say amongst devotees, we're part and parcel of Rādhārāṇī, because she is the devotional energy. And we are also of that devotional energy. But it's generally not expressed in that way. It's generally expressed that we're part and parcel of Krishna, just like the sun rays are part and parcel of the sun. Rādhārāṇī is the source of devotion. There cannot be devotion, even in the living entity, without the touch of Rādhārāṇī. Krishna is one, he divides himself to become two. One is the receiver, one is the giver. We are part and parcel of Krishna, but we are of that energy of Rādhārāṇī. Small, small. We can offer service to Krishna. But without the touch of Rādhārāṇī, then we cannot offer service to Krishna. So that's like a subtle point. First, and I say first because you're in first stage, not, I was just saying, my gosh, we were 3 years at Govindji Gardens before Jagadguru was born. I mean, you're bigger than me, but you're a newbie, boy. You're a newbie. Everything and all in time. In the beginning, I couldn't understand, what does it mean? What is this transcendental? What do you mean? And I just used to fry my brain some of the things, little things, transcendental. Couldn't wrap my head around it. So don't try to rush ahead. Just go ahead with a good strong stride, and gradually everything comes into clear view. Yes. So maybe, I'm searching for the words right now, but I'm not getting that. But somewhere in one of the articles that I wrote in the past, I covered this point about the living entity and Srimati Radharani. It might have been in relation to, so someone says, so you said without the touch, where is that touch? What do you mean touch? What is that? Is that just a poetic expression, or is there some reality to that? No, there's reality to that. And that is Shraddha. Your faith in Krishna is the investment of Radharāṇī in every living entity. Without that, you cannot serve Krishna. You cannot bring yourself to, I mean, you might actually, you cannot serve Krishna. It's just like without consciousness, nothing lives. So growth is a symptom of life. So anything that grows has a soul. Animals grow, plants grow, birds grow, snakes grow. Everything that grows has life. Life means a soul. Even it is said that some stones are growing, and therefore there's consciousness there in a very dense, covered, darkened state. Crystals grow. They say that, when I come across this, that I think there's this, that yogis sometimes enter stones or like crystals and things like this in order to benefact. Of course, also ghosts can do that. Other non-divine entities.
The Himalayas grow.
Can do that. Yeah, the Himalayas are growing. Krishna says of mountains on Meru, or what, immovable objects on the Himalayas, or is it?
Yeah, immovable objects on the Himalayas.
Immovable objects. But they're growing due to a different process. They're not really growing. It's just like you take a bunch of sand and push it together. You couldn't say, oh, that sand is growing. It's not growing. I'm pushing it together. So the tectonic plates, one is hitting another, and it's pushing the Himalayas up. That's different. Crystal actually grows. It grows, just like the root of a tree. Marble, I believe, grows also. So that's the destiny of, who are those souls? Those are the Buddhists. It's the closest thing to nothing. The slowest There is no nothing. It doesn't exist. Even in science, there is no absolute vacuum. There is no such thing as an absolute vacuum. They can make a vacuum in a machine and everything, but it's not absolute. At a nano level, there's still something there. Air is there, because air is in the very wall of whatever makes the vacuum. There's a rubber bag, a steel container, whatever. There's air there, so it's not an absolute vacuum. Yeah. I was just thinking about the experiment of ether and sound. But anyway, that's for something else. You could say in devotion, we're part and parcel of Srimati Rādhārāṇī, because she is the devotional aspect of Krishna. We're thinking two entities. Two entities. We always think of them as two. Krishna is God. Well, guess what? So is Rādhārāṇī. She's the Supreme Personality of Godheadess. That is written one time by Prabhupada, those exact words. It's in a 1953, I think 1953, Back to Godhead magazine, you know, when it was printed like a newspaper, and there's an article, and in that article he calls Rādhārāṇī the Supreme Personality of Godheadess. But, you know, when we in a temple, or you see a picture of Radha and Krishna, or you just hear Radha and Krishna, and all the focus is on Krishna. And especially when you're talking to people, Krishna. Oh, you believe in God? Yes, we believe in God. Who is that Krishna? We don't say Radha Krishna. We just say Krishna. Because Krishna went on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, not Rādhārāṇī. And preaching means the battlefield. Of what? Against ignorance, against atheism, whatever, all these different things. So that which is most sublime, it's just like in the culture. The enemy comes, we don't say, okay, ladies, get the frying pans and the butcher knives, we're going to go out and do battle. That isn't the culture of at least ancient civilization. Nowadays, they want the women to go in the army and drive tanks and get blown up, and then they all start crying and everything. Oh, there's blood. But women are not suited for the battlefield. And so that which is sacred, that which is the feminine, is protected. So we don't drag the personality of Rādhārāṇī, her name, her position, all these. We don't drag that out there and wave it around the face of the atheist. Follow?
Yes.
What did you say? But if there's something, and I would hope that there's something that you don't understand, well, that's totally natural. When you enter physics, you don't just grasp every principle that comes out. You have to build your understanding of physics or any deep science or medicine, how it works. And for example, medicine, what's it called? Neurology, that's the study of the brain. That's still a big mystery. That's still a mystery. Remember I said there's people who don't even have brains that are functioning in the world. That's how it's just a mystery. Well, in Krishna consciousness, everything is just not, oh, that's on page 33. Oh, that's on page 164. Some things are beyond the pages. In fact, the pages are just to launch you into orbit. The śāstra is not the final word. That's your final boost. It's up to you to soar.
This leads me to a follow-up question, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, the next point you made, which actually lines up, is that realization is not a product of you, and that it's something like a lotus opening for the sun to come in.
Descending and ascending.
And so where is the balance of realization coming down and us just studying enough to realize it? It's because you can't just chant and wait for the realization to come. You have to read and study at the same time, right?
Yes, that's right. But what is the reading is you're taking it in through the eyes. You didn't write those books. That book is also coming to you, and it's a process of, like, in the absence of the devotee, the best thing is the śāstra. But in the presence of the devotee, well, we don't throw away the śāstra, but the devotee will make the śāstra more clear. And actually, it's the devotee who wrote the śāstra. It's the devotee who spoke the śāstra. And within that, there's only two things in the śāstra. Two things, the words of Krishna and the words of devotees. That's it. There's nothing else there. That's all there's there. You pick up any verse and put your finger on it in the śāstra, it's either Krishna speaking or a devotee speaking. It's not nobody speaking, just like, whoa, the words just floated down. Who said that? I don't know. They just appeared there. It's not like that. There's only two things. Words of the devotees, words of Krishna. So, but that is again coming to us. That is also the wrong mood to study the śāstra will not produce the goal of śāstra. You can become a scholar of the Bhagavatam and not have bhakti. You want to see that? Let's go to India. Let's go to Sanskrit universities all around India. You know, they teach Sanskrit up to, I think you're how old, 10, 11 years old, in every school in India. Why? It's the basis of every language in India. So it's not like, even Muslims study Sanskrit. I know Muslim scholars of the Vedas. They miss the whole thing. However, so some endeavor to read in order to receive. You know, we're not just like the lotus, like, okay, when the sun wakes me up, I'm going to get up. Finally, it comes through the window. Oh, yeah, it's time to get up. We get up before the sun, and we open the window. We make it possible for the sun to enter. That's our endeavor. It said that everyone has to have the desire for self-realization. Now, that has to be stimulated. So there's example. We have life examples. We hear things. There are many things. Stimulating the prasadam. You know, if somebody just joins, we go, there's your khichdi. This is what you get every day. That's it. You know, it's just like, oh, I'll stay at home and offer my pakoras and samosas and enchiladas to Krishna, you know. So usually when the guests come, we insist on there should be really, really, really nice prasadam. You don't want to eat really. I tell the ladies, don't cook all fancy for these guys. You just cook enough to keep them working. And when it comes to Krishna, you cook fancy. You cook, you know, the cheesecakes and like we have Brajalilas making cheesecake or apple something or other. What was it? Apple crumble.
Apple crumble.
Apple crumble. But you know, I have to tell her, don't cook like that every day for this guy. Just, you know, give him some good, you know, some tortillas, some simple, nice things, some frijoles and rice, and keep him working, you know. But there's a reason for that too. If you eat all fancy, all sweetie, all everything, it's very bad for our health. Krishna can eat like that every day. In the big temples, opulence is served to Krishna every day. But then 30 or 50 devotees share that little pot of halwa. It's not like everybody got a whole glob of halwa in there. That's for special days. And so, you know, there's a way to balance things. So, but let me continue on this point. Through the personal endeavor, okay, what is yoga? All these yogis are striving upwards. There's no descent in this yoga system. No. The descent only comes in the bhakti system. You only get, when you get to the top of the mountain, then you get the greatest view. So all the yoga systems are self-endeavor, and they can reach Brahman. That's possible. By self-endeavor, one can reach Brahman realization, although it's almost impossible in Kali Yuga. On paper, yes, it is possible. And it's kind of debatable, but Paramātmā realization also. But when Paramātmā is realized by one's own endeavor, a confusion sets in. And the Paramātmā realized yogi thinks that the form that he sees of the supersoul is himself. This is a confusion. So then comes the question, okay, where does the Brahman realized yogis go? If they exist. In previous times, certainly they did. They go to the Brahman. Understand? You understand what I'm talking about? Where does the Paramātmā realized yogi go? He also goes to Brahman. Because he has no connection in devotional service. And even to reach the Vaikuntha planets, you have to have a connection in devotion. And they have no such connection. So both the Brahman realized and the Paramātmā realized can be done by their own endeavor. By tapasya, meditation, and all these things, and pranayamas, and doing all this stuff. Maybe it's like one in a, probably one. I don't know if there's one Brahman realized yogi on this planet. Actually, this is Kali-yuga. This is Kali-yuga. Look what's out there in the world. And I've been to the Himalayas. I've seen the guys. They're all a bunch of stoners is what they are. Are you kidding me? Those guys right now, it's setting in for winter, Bhajana, everything's closing. You go to the caves where the sadhus are living, and without exaggeration, they've got piles of marijuana 1.5 meters high in the back of their cave. Literally, like this. This is how they're going to get through the winter. And they got chellums, you know, they got a stock of those because they get stoned and drop them and break them. So they got a little stack of those little clay pipes. And Om. No, it's true. It's true. They're all of them. I've never met a total clean-cut yogi in India. Maybe there are some in the Himalayas. They're all stoners. All the Nagas, all of them. They're not Brahman realized. They don't even have Gyan. They don't even study the Vedanta or any of this stuff today. If they want to go out and collect some money, what do? They memorize Ramayana. And they go to the villages. They don't talk about Mahabharata. 2%. Ramayana. You know. Ram Ram Baba. You know, Ram Ram. And in the village, people are very humble like this, and they give them money, they give them food. They have their routes that they go around. So I don't know if there's even one Brahman realized yogi out there today. And it certainly isn't anybody like Pratibha Joyce or this Iyengar or any of these modern guys. These guys they're frauds. You might as well go to an aerobics class, Zumba, you know? You have that in Estados Unidos, Zumba?
Yeah, Mexico is very good.
Yeah, I've heard it. You look in there going,
Aqua Zumba.
Aqua Zumba.
No, you might as well just ride one of these exercise bicycles or something. It's just exercise. In fact, did you ever see, you know, the old circuses in the ladies doing? One of the most difficult asanas to do is the bow. You know, that's the full back bend. You just stand on your feet and back bend and put your nose on the ground behind your heels, or go all the way over and then come up and put your head between your legs. Stand like this. Now bend over backwards and put your nose here. They've been doing this in the circuses around the world. Persian, Indian, American, England, China. They've been doing this stuff forever. They're just contortionists. So the human body, you can stretch the muscles and you can get into all these positions and postures. But it's not for grooming your physique, improving your sex life. It's for controlling your senses. But they're not practicing sense control along with asana. And then there's pranayama, and hardly anybody does pranayama. And all of that is just so you can steady the mind so you can begin to meditate. And of course, if they do teach meditation, it's some sound or maybe Om and impersonalism. You won't find any process in the Vedas for impersonal meditation. Meditation, is explained in the Bhagavatam and many other places, begin with meditating on the lotus feet of Vishnu and rising up to meditation on the lotus face of Vishnu or Krishna. But there's never recommendation on, you know, I'm controlling the sun and the moon, you know. Remember that one cover of that Siddha's book, you know? The guy's doing, oh, I'm controlling the sun and the moon, and coming behind him was a farmer with a shovel, going to whack him in the head because he was sitting on private property.
That's a classic picture.
Yeah, that was a good one. You know, I'm controlling the sun and the moon. Oh, yep.
Kind of control your bowels. You know?
Yeah, right. And I got to stop because I got dysentery when I was in India and run off to the banyo. You know, it's like. So it is possible by our own endeavor to reach Brahman and Paramātmā, but we're not trying to reach Brahman and Paramātmā realization. So our endeavor is like the crying of a child to get the attention of the mother. Now, I don't want you to don't start screaming, but I remember once in a Kirtan, I was dancing in a Kirtan with all the devotees, and they started Jai Prabhupada, but I shouted Prabhupada as if I was saying, Prabhupada! And he was like, and I was like, whoops. It said there was a, who was he? The next door neighbor of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who lived in the next house.
Maharaja.
Yes, later became a disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta. And when he was a young man, he would wake up early in the morning, middle of the night, and there would be Bhakti Vinod in the garden behind his house, chanting japa, as if calling someone from a great distance. And this young man would wake up to go to the banyo in the middle of the night, and he would hear Bhakti Vinod chanting loudly, and he said, as if calling someone from a great distance. But generally, japa is chanted quietly, not loudly. But he is chanting the holy name of Krishna, and at a very advanced stage of bhakti, feeling separation from Krishna. Maybe he was even shedding tears. I don't want to see you up here in the middle of the night going, Krishna, Krishna, shouting everything. I hear tears coming out of your eyes because you're sticking yourself in the ass with a pin, you know. We can't imitate. And sometimes devotees, when they see, for example, I'll give you an example. One day Govinda Maharaj said to the devotees, he goes, you see, all of you are coming to Śrīla Maharaj, and you are seeing him in Paramahansa Bhav, full of affection, just exuberant, love, affection, and just so sweet and everything. He said, when he was 40 years old, you wouldn't want to go near him. He said, we used to argue with each other. Who's going to take the prasadam? No, I did it last time. You do it this time. He was so strict, and anything that was out of place, whoa, you might get a lesson. People were like, no, you take him this prasadam. He said, so we were seeing him in Paramahansa Bhav. But Prabhupada, we rarely saw him in Paramahansa Bhav. He was in Parabhajakacharya Bhav. That means he's pushing. You know, God is not dead, I have seen him. He's fighting with atheism. He's fighting with materialism. He's fighting with all kinds of nonsense. Boot on face, he said, I kick on their face, scientists. I kick them in the teeth. You say there is no God, I kick you in the teeth. I have seen him. Fighting. But Śrīla Maharaj was much older when all the Western devotees came around, so Govinda Maharaj pointed this out, and I think very aptly also. So we may see something, we may hear something. What was that? I'll give an example one day. You know, in chanting, every once in a while you want to review your japa, especially if you're busy in anything, either service or business service or anything. You want to listen, pay attention to what you're chanting. Right? There are many examples. My own example, I'll cite one example of Vishnu Maharaj. There are many examples that when we're chanting, all of a sudden we start dropping part of the mantra and we don't realize it. We start chanting and it's not so clear. Or we might be saying it, but it's just kind of swallowed the last, any part, right? So one day in India there was this devotee, He was staying in the ashram for a while. His name was Hanuman. And I listened to Hanuman chanting, and I'm like, Hanuman, you're not chanting properly. You know, you're missing the part of the mahā-mantra. He goes, well, that's the way Vishnu Maharaj does it. And another time, worse than that, was we're sitting down in a little preaching center in, it was somewhere in Florida, somewhere in Florida, Tampa, somewhere anyway. And taking prasadam after the morning program, about 8 o'clock, 8:30. And the devotees put on this japa tape. And I'm like, taking prasadam, I go, oh God, shut that off. That's terrible. Who's that? And they went, that's you, Maharaj, this morning. So they didn't know how to approach me about my japa. It was just like, just, you know, it was just a jumble of, it sounded like a chainsaw running, you know. I go, oh God, shut that off. That's terrible. Who is that? They go, that's you, this morning. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So I had to renovate my japa, pay attention, not just let your minds go on about your service. That's okay. But then sometimes your tongue just goes all over and you're not chanting the mantra. It is a mantra with so many words and syllables, and once you chant them audibly, distinctly, you should hear what it is you're chanting. To do that, sometimes devotees will sit in front of a mantra card or something and almost like read Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, because it's a muscle and it gets trained, and if you let it go, it'll be all over the place. And so things like that. But then a newcomer comes like Hanuman, and he hears Vishnu Maharaj chanting, and he goes, oh, that's a good style, I like that. It's faster that way too. When you drop a few words at the end, you made it a minute faster or something like that. So there are many just like practical things to do, and one of those things is don't try to rush ahead too fast in anything. And questions are your saving grace. Don't just assume, ask questions. Ask questions of devotees who have possibly the experience that they can answer that question. And if they can't, they should be honest enough to say, well, I don't have the answer to that. I mean, I said to some of our guests the other day when we were taking prasadam, right, in Guanajuato, 3-hour class, and I said it in such a way they wouldn't get the wrong impression. I said, there is no question that you can ask me that I don't know the answer for. No question. No question. Because I said, there are questions that I cannot answer. But you're not advanced enough to even ask those questions. You don't even know where that realm is. You see? So I don't say there's nothing that I can't answer. There's just nothing that you can ask that I can't answer. That's why I'm the teacher and you're the student. You see? But I have my teachers too, and they're higher and higher and higher and higher rooms. And at some point, even the Vedas says, I don't know, this is just way up there. Even rishis, even Narada Muni. So what mortal walking around this world with a uttarīya can say, I know absolutely everything? That's ridiculous. But I know everything that you need to know. And after 50 years of practice, you will have questions that you can't answer, but then you will be able to answer anybody else's question who's coming on the path. Understand what I'm saying? We're talking about the infinite. Krishna even amazes himself to speak of us. There are certain things about Gaur-lila which are just seem so simple, but they're so out there and so mystifying, and maybe it's always supposed to be that. It's like the final carrot at the end of the trail. Yes, you've now understood so many things, but there's something out there that's so attractive, but you can't just say, I've conquered that. I know that. No. And actually, Mahaprabhu Lila is much more mystifying than Krishna-lila, actually. Easier to follow and more mystifying in the end. Oh, sorry.
Guru Maharaj, now that you were talking about the mahā-mantra chanting, there's something about it. Every time I'm chanting, I realize, well, comparing the time I chant, it takes, I feel, like certain amount of time that some other devotees I've seen that they take so much less. And I mean...
You mean spend the time? Somebody spends an hour time?
Not that...
Or do you mean this fast speed? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Yes, in that sort my question goes, I've heard some devotees that chant Hare Ram, Ram, Ram. But I said Rama, so
well,
there's...
that's their accent. Like my name, and nobody gets it in South India. Narasingha. Nobody says Singh. Simha. It's Narasingha, Narasingha. If you ever notice, when I spell Lord Nrsingadeva's name, I spell it Narasimha. I don't spell it the same way I spell my name, but my name was given to me in Bengal, and they don't say Simha, they say Singha. They don't say Klim, they say Kling. They don't say I'm, they say, not I'm like I am, I'm in Gayatri Mantra, I'm Sri Gurave Namaha. They don't say I'm, they say I'm. And so sometimes when I'm giving Gayatri, I'm it's just like in the middle, that's intonation. So are you saying it right or you're saying it wrong? Well, that depends on what's in here. Now, I have stood next to Mayavadis chanting the mahā-mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I was going, bam, slapped this guy in the teeth, man. Shut this monkey up. Because all that is exuberating from there is, I want to be you, I want to be you, I want moksha, I want moksha. It's just like, shut up. It's like, ugh, horrible sound. And then the Sahaji is like, it's just boom, shut this monkey up. So it's not the pronunciation, because the French, the Russians, the Chinese, the Mexicanos, the gringos, y'all from Louisiana, chant Hare Krishna. It's just like everybody's got an accent, right? It's what's in the heart that matters. But whatever is being chanted should be clear. And sometimes our practice will be to slur something or anything. So, but there was once one devotee. He was, I forget his name, but he was an ISKCON. He was an ISKCON guru, and he used to chant in front of a mirror, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I was like, that must be hellish. Like a dentist looking into people. How are you today? 2 noses in a hole. Highest rate of suicide.
Yes.
Is dentist. Looking in someone's mouth all day will make you a little loopy. 2 noses and So this devotee wrote a book called Japa Reform. And he went to Śrīla Maharaj and he interviewed Śrīla Maharaj about chanting the holy name. And he recorded it. And when he was going back to Mayapur, he commented to the 2 devotees that were with him, oh, it's unfortunate. Śrīla Maharaj didn't say anything I could use in my book. And my opinion is you can take his Japa Reform book and put it in the basura. And you can put your soul right there on even just a fraction of what Śrīla Maharaj said about chanting the holy name, you'll be successful. And that other thing is just some external mechanics of clearly articulating Hare, Rama, all this. This is not chanting the holy name. Chanting the holy name comes from the heart. And when it exits the mouth, there may be some inaudible, there may be some mispronunciation, there may be some accent, and there may even be some neglect. But if the heart's sincerity is there, then that will reach to the ear of Krishna. But if there's no proper sincerity of devotion there, all this other stuff doesn't matter. It does not matter. So, but if someone comes to you and says, you know, it's actually painful to listen to you chant japa. And that's what the devotees wanted to tell me. But they feared the reaction, so they decided to make a plot to let me discover that. For example, my old friend Tripurari Maharaj, a devotee went to him and said, you know, this is in the time when they were banning Śrīla Maharaj and Śrīla Maharaj's books and stuff, you know. So this devotee comes to Tripurari Maharaj and goes, you know, somebody gave me this book by Sridhar, and I know it's just, you know, it's full of, you know, it's apasiddhanta, it's nonsense, but you know, I'm just not advanced enough to put my finger on it. But Maharaj, I'm sure you could. So if you could read this and then tell me, put your finger on the nonsense, right? Mm-hmm. So he tricked him into reading Sridhar Maharaj's book. And he comes out of the room the next day and goes, this is it! This is it! This is it!
Eureka?
Huh? Eureka! Eureka! Yeah, it was Eureka! I mean, you don't know, you read it now, and well, yeah, okay, there's some good things in there and everything, but you have to understand that was at a time when everything this is about is being misunderstood in ISKCON. Every part of it is being misunderstood. None of it is being properly understood. None of it. And it's still that way today. That's why I say there's not one department of the Siddhanta which they know either completely or correctly. They know part of it, but not all of it, or they got it wrong. Everything there is Krishna, Radha, Hari-nāma, Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, Panchatattva, Gadadhara, Śāstra, everything there is. They either know part of it, but not the rest of it, or they got it wrong. And that's not what we want. Yes, there is a plane where we may bow our head and say, I don't understand. But that should not be about, the Guru should not be doing that about the most fundamental things that there are. That should be, yes, on the highest plane, yes, I bow my head humbly. I do not. I have not been taken there. I do not understand that. It's beyond my reach. And that humility should be there everywhere. But for the beginner, like I met this one devotee in Czech Republic, I think. I don't know, you were there, or Vishnu Maharaj was there. We talked to this one devotee for a few hours, and he goes, wow, you know everything. And I said, well, actually, I know more than that. I thought that was a good one. In other words, yes, I know things that you can't even answer, right? You can't even ask the question at this stage. And I know those things also. But then with humility, I have to say, yes, but then that there are things that I don't know the answers to. But they are not on the basic level. They're on the higher level. I mean, once Hari Sari wrote that letter, we have that little punchline. He said, Prabhupada listened to one of my classes in, what year was that, 1976.
Oh, he was listening to your class.
Yeah, I was giving a class on Prabhupada's veranda, and he was sitting in his room, and the door was open. I noticed twice he did that. He listened to me give a Sunday class once to the Sunday thing, and his room was above the temple room, and the door opened up in the beginning of the class about this much, you know. But I never heard anything about that. But later, in the Hyderabad farm, that day, that's the same day, actually the same day that Prabhupada asked me to chant on beads for the devotees that were getting initiated. That was a shock. I mean, Prabhupada is right there, and he calls me over, and they give me 3 sets of beads, and Prabhupada is taking massage, and his secretary says, Prabhupada wants you to chant on these beads for the new initiates. There was 3 people. One of them was a couple, and about 8 years ago, or sometime, somebody comes up to me in Vrindavan and says, oh, you chanted on our beads for Prabhupada. It was a man and his wife, Indian couple. I don't remember their names. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, so that day I gave class in the morning, and like, I don't know, what was it, 35 years later, almost 35 years later, I got a letter from Prabhupada's secretary, Hari Sari, and you know who he is, Hari Sari. And he said, yes, I was sitting in the room and Prabhupada listened to your class. And when the class was over, Prabhupada said, our Jagat Guru Swami knows the philosophy very well. So then I tell people, you better be careful because I know it 100 times better now. That was almost 40 years ago. It's just to scare away my enemies, you know. So sometimes a devotee may boast. What if one book said everything? We boast about the Bhagavad Gita. There are so many questions the Bhagavad Gita will not answer. But those questions don't concern anybody who's still in the material world. You see. So sometimes, you know, Prabhupada is saying, I have seen. You say God is dead? I saw him this morning. Wow, Prabhupada saw Krishna this morning. Yes and no. Yes and no. Then they ask the same question to Śrīla Mahārāja. It's called fishing. You want this. You want the same. You ask the same question, and you're waiting to hear the same answer, right? And Śrīla Mahārāja wasn't going to be played like that, and he gave his answer, which is the answer you will hear from 99.9999. Not even 1 in 100,000 or 1,000,000 devotees will say, "Yes, I have seen Krishna." And he said, no, I have not seen. Then they're like, oh, Guru Maharaj, there's just a few devotees here. You can tell us. They're just trying to pull this question. And finally he said, no, but I think I'm on the right path. And why? Because that's the actual feeling of the devotee. But I have no doubt that also that he did not realize Krishna or see Krishna. That seeing Krishna is also in stages. Once Bhagaji, you know who Bhagaji was? Bhagaji was Prabhupada's friend. It's the only friend he had in his last years. By friend, I mean who would sit in his room, joke with him, give Prabhupada a massage, but he was not his disciple. He was not even in our sampradāya. He was in the Nimbarka sampradāya. His name was Bhagaji, and he's the one who donated the land for the Krishna Balaram, not temple, Gurukul. He gave that land. And one day, in the last month or so of Prabhupada's presence, and Prabhupada called him to his bedside and he said, you know, he was saying Bhagaji told us this about 4 years later. He said, but then it's Bhagaji, better maybe add a grain of salt there, just like, interesting. Anyway, Bhagaji, Prabhupada called Bhagaji to his bedside and he said, Bhagaji, that's his name, Bhagaji. What kind of name is that?
It's Bhagavat, but then
Bhagat.
they shortened it to Bhagat.
Yeah, like I just called Jagat Guru. Jagat. So he said, Bhagaji, when I was coming to America, I had a heart attack on the boat. And Bhagaji said, yes, Prabhupada, and in a dream, Krishna came and saved you, he said. And then Prabhupada reached up and grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him over close and said, not like that. Krishna came personally and massaged my heart. And so, but it was Bhagaji. Maybe he was adding a little chili there, a little salsa or something, but yeah, not just a dream that Krishna came and saved me, because that's how Prabhupada told the story to everybody else. But on that day he said, no, not like that. Actually, Krishna came and massaged my heart. So these things do happen in the lives of devotees, but these are not the lead cards. This is not for the public at all. Why? Because that stuff just becomes Sahajiism. And Kapoor writes a book called Braj Ki Baat, And every story is, you know, Krishna coming and putting his hands on some lady who's washing clothes and chanting Hare Krishna and coming and stealing the water pot and all this stuff. All this stuff. The same thing like a magician's da-da-da-da-da-da. Next story, da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, it's just like, what? It's the same story. And then he wrote about Gorkashore Das Babaji. Or no, was it Jagannath Das Babaji?
Jagannath Das.
Jagannath Das, because Gorkashore didn't actually come to the Braj or stay in the Braj. And the same thing. Nothing. Nothing different. The same thing. And I told Dr. Kapoor, who's Prabhupada's godbrother, who's Bhakti Siddhanta's disciple, he put this thing in front of me at a time, and I just told him, Kapoor, I don't believe this stuff. And that's the kind of world I've had to be in. Right there with a disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta and have to tell him, I don't believe this. And put it right back in front of him. I don't believe this. No, this and that. I said, I don't believe these things, Kapoor. It's the same thing. It's too cheap. I believe it's possible. Maybe one of those stories is true, but all these stories about this thing, all these people in the last 300 years that had Krishna darshan, I said, I told him I would go in Prabhupada's room early in the morning. Prabhupada's room, he had a sitting room about this much big, right? And he had his desk over here. And they're called guddas in India. It's a thin mattress about this thick, right? Cotton. Goes down on the floor. They're like the size of a bed, and you join them together. Then you cover that with big white sheets, cotton, white. And you can imagine how many times a day you're sometimes changing that, the public coming in, people with dirty feet. And I'd go in that room early in the morning, and I said, I didn't see any little footprints of Krishna. Everything's all ruffled up and everything. It's, you know. But you're trying to tell me there's some lady out here in the Braj washing clothes, chanting Hare Krishna, and Krishna comes and leaves his footprints on her nicely washed white linen. I said, well, you know, I don't believe these things. I don't believe it. They're very cheap. But in the common people, just like here, the miracles of Jesus. The miracles, right? Without the miracles, the guy got himself killed. Period. With the miracles, people believe in miracles. Common people believe in miracles. That's why I wrote that essay. What did I call it? The Teaching and Miracles of Sri Chaitanya.
Life and Miracles.
Life and Miracles. I wrote a little book. We want to get that translated in Spanish. It's really good for common people because we never think about, well, yeah, actually, Lord Chaitanya did perform miracles. The blind, the leprosy, he created mangoes and gold from tamarind seeds. He did all these miracles, but on the real path of devotion, those miracles are not even like, oh yeah, right, he did do miracles. But the people that follow Jesus, the miracles are the proof of his divinity. But on the real path of bhakti, those miracles or amazing things, they're more humorous than they are like proof of divinity. It's not proof of divinity on a higher level. Proof of divinity, what is proof of divinity? Is faith, shraddha, real shraddha. That doesn't take place in the mind, what you believe. That's not shraddha. Shraddha is very, very different. Much, much deeper. But shraddha is that which confirms that which is beyond your senses. You cannot see, you cannot hear all these things. There's a book that those of you who are a little more studious or have not finished, but read much of the other literature first, like the whole Caitanya-caritāmṛta, the whole Śrīmad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita at least 100 times, the Nectar Devotion 7 or 20 times, Isha Upanishad 100 times. When you've done that, then you can read this book called Bhajan Rahasya by Bhakti Vinod. And there he explains how the whole Lila of Krishna is compacted up in the sound you chant every day. Hare Krishna. The Lila of Krishna is there. And he also mentions how one day while chanting the holy name, the whole world just turned into Vaikuntha, Goloka, right? And his very house just changed into the spiritual world. But probably the household servant just checked in to see if he was ready for his breakfast or something, and he was just sitting in a chair. and he didn't see anything. But he had the vision. He says, my home was transformed into Goloka. So a very nice book. It's called Bhajan Rahasya. What does Rahasya mean?
Secret.
Secret. The secret of bhajan.
Right. I have a question related to the last class we gave as well. I've asked this question before, but I find it difficult sometimes to explain this to people. And that's the difference between hari-nāma initiation and dīkṣā, because sometimes we say, well, real initiation is dīkṣā, hari-nāma isn't real initiation, but at the same time, if you have hari-nāma, you can say that's everything. Dīkṣā, right. The Gayatri mantra is only...
So you can chant Hare Krishna. We actually tell people, chant Hare Krishna. When they do that, then we're suggesting with that the path of bhakti. Not the Mayavadi chanting, but a person may chant Hare Krishna, but they may go towards the Mayavadi sector. You know, this is very common in India. Bhakti Fest. If you go around to Bhakti Fest and just that person downstairs chanting Hare Krishna, just interview them, you know, in such a way, I've never done this, but I would say, you know, you're going to get almost no like, this mantra goes to Krishna and we are devoted to Krishna. They'll say it goes everywhere and anywhere and you'll get a lot of pure light and all this stuff, all this love fest stuff, you know. Then might even say, and then you realize it is Krishna, Ganesh, it is Shiva, it is Vishnu, it's all the same, it's all one. Very Hinduism, very Hindu. You won't get people saying, yes, we were chanting, worshiping Krishna, and the next one they're doing Om Namo Shivaya, Om Namo Shivaya, and the girls are dancing and the boys are drooling, and it's just like, that's what Bhakti Fest is, you know. It's just a hodgepodge. But in it, some devotees go there, try to preach. I think one year even Bodhaya Maharaj went there or something. Probably he won't go back twice. It's like, it's a waste of time, Bhakti Fest. People go there. They try to do some good and everything, but just like, you know, try to feed the jungle animals with a little cup of birdseed. It's just, it's pretty much a waste of time. Anyway, what was I saying about that? So anybody can chant the holy name. So what is hari-nāma initiation? That is one, the shelter and guidance. That's what that means. That's where the descending process starts. Before it's just all ascending. The holy name, you're chanting, you have your, and it goes somewhere. And dīkṣā. Now it depends, you know, see, you know when these things are written about who has dīkṣā, that is the meaning of a Vaishnava, right? That was written before the advent of the holy name.
Yeah.
So things have changed. Things have changed. There has been addition since the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's Caitanya-caritāmṛta. So everybody doesn't have to take second initiation. Not necessary. But if you read certain things, it'd be like, I'll tell you a confusion that's set in. And here's how it's set in. There's a letter from Śrīla Prabhupāda that says second initiation is the main initiation. So, after the time of Śrīla Prabhupāda, many devotees just had first initiation. They didn't have second initiation. And then their godbrother, one of the ISKCON gurus, would then give them second initiation at some later point, a few months later, a year later, whatever. And in some cases, not in some cases, it was universally accepted at that time when they took second initiation from their godbrother, but they'd taken first initiation from Śrīla Prabhupada, they were told, now you're my disciple. Which some people would have thought, oh, it'd been better off maybe just to remain Prabhupada's disciple, but not have second initiation. And this persisted for almost 20 years. 20 years! That's almost the time you've been alive, Jagadguru. This idea that if they took second initiation from a godbrother, because the letter said main initiation is second initiation, that now actually the main initiation from a godbrother, so their main guru is their godbrother. And this is a subject matter which is dealt with to some extent or significantly in Sri Guru and His Grace. So after about 20 years, they corrected that folly, and there was a resolution, kind of like the Pope gets to free all the children from limbo, passes a resolution, and they passed a resolution that said, oh, actually, well, after 20 years, well, actually, if you took second initiation from your godbrother, actually, your main guru is Prabhupada. Well, unfortunately, some people went to the grave with this misunderstanding. You see. However, if they would have listened to Śrīla Mahārāja, they would have never had this misunderstanding. But they didn't. They chose and picked and supermarket shopped for what they thought was good for them. And this misled, this is just one of the things which misled the movement in different directions, sometimes creating complete havoc and confusion in people's spiritual lives. So that Puranic verse that a Vaishnava is one who's received dīkṣā, this is before the advent of the Sankirtan. And the mahā-mantra, the magnanimity of the Sankirtan movement supersedes the strict rules, regulations, and otherwise sometimes limited conceptions of the Vedas. Yeah. So the real thing at hari-nāma, and that is, like I said the other day when I said, now for a moment you're being seen by Krishna. You're being noticed by Krishna. You're now accepted into the family. What do we call that again? Chuta Gotra, the family of Krishna. So that's hari-nāma initiation. But people can chant the holy name without a name. We tell them to do that all the time. We just passed out some beads the other day, right? To Blanca and Julian, and got beads, and Carlos Ortiz, he's been chanting on beads for 4 years. Yeah. You see? But they haven't, none of them have accepted a guide. They haven't, and they're not under our shelter. We're like, they're at the back door and we're passing out some tortillas. We're just feeding the poor out the back door, and if you know, it's like trying to, I don't give an example of dogs, but it's like trying to attract a deer from the forest. Come on, here's a tortilla, come on. And if they come in, then they might enter and become part of the family of Krishna. Otherwise, that which they do will be given to them in the next life, and they come a little closer. I mean, once devotees asked Prabhupada, what great deeds did we do in a previous life to get your mercy? And he said, none. Don't think that you've been great yogis and you've done this and you've done that. I have created your fortune by coming here. Now, for someone born in Estados Unidos in Mexico, it shouldn't be hard for us to think like that. Like, yeah, right. I didn't have any good anything. It's all been created for me. Right? But if you're born in India, well, okay. But Kali Yuga, but India, you're born in Vrindavan? Well, yeah, not everybody's born in Vrindavan or Mayapur, in a holy place, even on the banks of the Kaveri River and all this stuff. Well, maybe you did something, but still, one should think of themselves as lower than the straw on the street, not full of qualifications. When Giri Maharaj first came to our mission, he was 15 years trained in a Gurukul, more or less. And he knew how to do so many things in puja, in ritual, and all these things. And we gave him opportunity to do none of it. Until we realized, I don't have anything to offer here. And when he realized he had nothing to offer here, then I took the opportunity to extract these things which he did know, which are very good. But independent of what we had to offer him, these things didn't mean anything. That's not why we were out of ISKCON, because, you know, we needed an elaborate puja with all these doodaddy, what you call them?
Fluff.
Huh?
Fluff.
Fluff. Mudras. In fact, it's strange that in ISKCON, Prabhupada introduced, I call it the Nama Om standard. Nama, Nama, Om, Vishnu, Padaya, and offer the ghee and everything. Now there's all this fancy stuff, and you just purified your hand with 3 drops of water, Shri Vishnu, or you did some simple thing, and that was it, right? Then as the movement is now 40 years old, you see all the pujaris doing all these called mudras. This is what, the Matsya, and you purify with mudras, and to be able to do the one of the cow's udder is a little bit tricky,
Yeah.
It's a funny way you do that. Anyway, you make a cow's udder, and go like this, and all. They're called mudras, right? Now you see in this temple's pujaris doing all this stuff, doing all this elaborate achmans and everything. But it says that these things push Krishna far away. These mudras and things, it's actually mentioned in Bhakti Shastra, that this level actually distances you from Krishna. He's more anxious to see you mess up and miss the water on your hand than he is doing all this fancy stuff. So it says that when a devotee enters Rāgānuga, he stops doing all this stuff. Well, that's how Prabhupada began the movement. He didn't give all this fancy stuff that you have to do. You see? But as they've progressed for 50 years, now they all do all this fancy stuff. So where's the Rāgānuga? They haven't caught this little point. And some even surrendered to the idea, oh, Prabhupada didn't teach Rāgānuga-bhakti. Now I'll tell you this one. Govinda Maharaj was once, Govinda Maharaj, the disciple of Śrīla Maharaj, vast experience, knowing Prabhupada quite well throughout his life as a child, even living in Prabhupada's house as a runaway 16-year-old boy, living in Prabhupada, hiding from his family. They said, someone came to him, I think Sagar or someone came in. They say Swami Maharaj didn't teach Rāgānuga. Rāgānuga means spontaneous love. He didn't teach Rāgānuga-bhakti. Govinda Maharaj's comment, bullshit. Bullshit. Very American.
Sutra.
Nonsense. Because they don't know what Rāgānuga is. They've actually were handed Rāgānuga-bhakti and threw it away and have adopted all this other funny duty stuff, howdy-doody stuff. And they actually don't have Rāgānuga-bhakti or know about it properly. And the ones that do are more like Sahajis. Writing books, creating Krishna-lila. Creating Krishna-lila. Writing books. Radha Krishna did this, Krishna said this, Radha said that, they went here, they did this, the gopis, all this stuff. Thick books like this, publishing them, distributing them. What is this? Now, you'll find the books of the Goswamis writing about Radha and Krishna. Krishna said this, Radha said that, da-da-da-da. Prabhupada said yes. Those people came from there. They know what they said. They know what they did because they came from there. That's Rupa Goswami, Sanatana. People like Bilva Mangala Thakur, Krishna revealed his Lila to him, and Bilva Mangala, who was blind, then could see Krishna-lila and recorded all this. Yes, but this other fellow, Shivaram, his name is Shivaram, he just invents this stuff. And when someone says, wait a minute, you just invented this, he goes, yeah, but I invented this just like Bhaktivinoda invented the Jaiva Dharma. None of it really happened, but the knowledge is there. It's like, beep, wrong answer. Get out of here. Bhaktivinoda didn't invent Jaiva Dharma. In the opinion of Śrīla Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta, and others, these stories of Jaiva Dharma, they happened. And he's bringing it from that place, that plane. He's bringing that story. So, inventing Krishna-lila. Prabhupada said, don't add anything. Don't invent anything. And now you're inventing whole lila. And then you have your parampara, you have your 1,000 disciples or 2,000 disciples, and then you're gone and they're there, your book's there. Guess what? Sahajis. Nonsense. And people will then quote that as śāstra and this and that. And it's like, what are you talking about? What is this nonsense? Well, plenty to talk about, but that will not bring realization. There are such things as dramas, plays, and stuff like this of Krishna-lila. What is it called? Rādhārāṇī, what's it called? The Sanskrit. I mentioned it in one of the books. You see the drama of Krishna and it invokes a particular sentiment, a particular bhava. Sadharana karana.
Sadharana karana.
Sadharana karana. Yeah. That's true. But that very, very strictly follows the śāstra. It's not some invented play that invokes that love for Krishna. It's a very, 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 very strict thing. And even that is, in this stage, is to be avoided. Because one, it cannot be played properly. Two, the people cannot understand it properly. Swarup Damodar, Ramananda Roy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and others, they used to watch such dramas. Highest devotees watching the most, controlled, you might say, presentation in the form of drama and evoking from them. But the common people, they just become sahajis. There were these people, they were from a classic dance troupe in Orissa. It's called Oriya dance and drama. And they came to Prabhupada when he was in Puri and asked his blessing to do a drama on Krishna-lila. And he said, I'm sorry, I cannot give you the blessing. No. You can look this up in the folio, and Prabhupada says no about 50 times. No, no, no. They ask it, no, 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 no. I think in that 45-minute interview they had, he says no about 50 times. Like, how many times do I have to say it? No, right? So then they went, okay, well, he's saying people will misunderstand. It just breeds sahajism. They will not understand. It is too high. So then they said, oh, okay, all right, we'll do a drama of Mother Yasoda and Krishna. And he said, no, they will also misunderstand that. He said, you want to do a drama? Do Bhagavad Gita, Kurukshetra. Krishna's preaching, you're not the body. Never was a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor will we ever cease to be, and all about karma and do's and don'ts and demoniac nature, divine nature. Oh, do a drama, do Bhagavad Gita. And they were like, oh, that's too dry. And they went away and did nothing. But that's in the folio. You can look that up. People will misunderstand. So we need to keep things simple. Of course, dramas can be a little better than Big Fish, Little Fish. You probably saw that one growing up, right? A little bit better than that. That's also misleading. Big Fish, Little Fish. You know the Big Fish, Little Fish drama?
No.
Before your time. It was a Sunday drama they would do that demonstrated how we fell from the spiritual world. Oh. There was a big fish, and then all the little fish, but then another fish swam by, and then we left the school, and we got caught by the fishermen or something. It's like, what the hell? Who invented that? It's called Big Fish, Little Fish.
In Mexico, they translated pechín y pechón.
Pechín y pechón. So then funny says, oh, they have fish at that temple. That's not bad. I like fish. They serve fish.
We all started off as fish.
We started off as fish, yeah. What? So, what I had suggested at some particular point over in Guanajuato years back, and street drama. If you can figure out a street drama is very popular. And if you had a street drama crew of 6 or 8 people who could actually put together dramas with a spiritual knowledge or something like that, what a place. That place is so ripe. I mean, they have these clowns that come out, and hundreds of people sit on the steps of the, the theater, right now. And these clowns, I mean, I can't believe they don't throw rocks at these clowns. These clowns are so pathetic. And I thought, wow, these people are easily entertained. I mean, the clowns are bad. Bad. But the people just applaud them and give money in their hat and laugh their asses off, And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, be a great place for street drama. But to put all that together, you know, is very difficult. The best one ever done, and even they lost the plot and they blew it. It was called The Age of Kali.
Mm.
And they got this street drama down so good, they decided to shoot for Broadway in New York. And they spent 2 years rehearsing, and in the end the whole thing just faded out. But it was so good. You can maybe see YouTube videos on the original The Age of Kali. Oh, they really did it good, you know. They had Kali come on stage. My name is Kali. This is my age. And I'm going to do you. And he had a black cave and smoke coming out. It was like, woo! You know, it was really good because it wasn't like Krishna-lila and Bob. It was like, we're in the age of Kali. And Kali will do us in. He's out for our blood. You know, our head on a stick. You know, they had to really dramatize. And there you can dramatize, right? All right. What time is lunch?
There were questions from outside too.
Yes, we have.
I'm sorry. Well, all right.
Janalan is one question about the, if you can talk about the Kali-chelas term.
You can elaborate on it.
Yes, you can elaborate.
Kali-chela. Yeah. Well, a Kali-chela is a term that Bhaktivinoda put in a poem or a
Song.
in a song. Kali-chela. Chela means disciple. And Kali means the age. So who is a disciple of the age of Kali? Well, he's saying there'll be many Kali-chelas. Now, these Kali-chelas, you could actually look and go, yes, they weren't working for Mossad. Like some people in ISKCON figured that because Jews were joining, that Mossad, right? Mossad's Israeli, right? That the Israelis sent people into ISKCON to destroy it because it was such a threat, right? Well, I don't think so. And the proof of that is when they finally have finished their job and retire, they don't marry a Protestant girl and live in Alachua. If Mossad sends someone to disrupt your worldwide organization, when their job is over, they go back to Israel, they have a completely different name, they marry a nice Jewish girl, and they live in Golem Heights somewhere. And they go to the mosque. They don't then to retire and live in Alachua, Florida, and go to the local Hare Krishna temple Sunday feast. Just to keep an eye on things, you know, with a Protestant wife. Right. What a joke. What a joke. You know, it's like, oh yeah, right. So devotees haven't thought this through very well. But that rather than becoming pure devotees or remaining in the path of pure devotion, they became victims of Kali and became the instruments of Kali, Kali-chela. And there seems to have been quite a few. They ruined the movement. First thing was usurp Prabhupada's position. They wanted a chair like his. They needed lions, you know. They needed gold guild. They needed opulent living. They needed fancy cars. All this stuff which they needed. None of it, actually. Almost none of it. Some people even started wearing glasses when they didn't wear glasses, just so they would look like Prabhupada. Everybody walking with a cane. I mean, everybody, 29, 33, 35-year-old men walking with a cane. What are you doing with a cane? You crippled? What? Prabhupada had a cane, you know. Elvis silks, all the, yeah, it's just usurping the position. Then the title, everybody had to be a pod. Everybody had to be a pod. Prabhupada, Vishnupad, Tirthapad. There was 1 or 2 Guru days, but everybody had to have a pod. What is that? It's imitation. That's usurping. Then telling you, oh, now you're my disciple, not Prabhupada's disciple. What is that? Stealing the disciples of Prabhupada. Oh, even some gurus wanted to move into Prabhupada's room. They wanted to live in his room in Bombay. The Acharya there, he wanted to live in Prabhupada's room. So they built him a special room on the side to preserve that. I mean, it was just crazy, every level going on. Usurping. usurping the power, made all the other GBCs nothing. They were eunuchs. They were nothing. They had no power at all. They just voted and said whatever the guru said, that's what they did. But after like half a dozen of these gurus showed that, well, hey, this doesn't seem to be the real deal, then they came up with the idea that when the GBC meets, the collective group of the GBC becomes Prabhupada. Still trying to usurp his position. But that, they were just hanging on to power. There's a history of why they are what they are, and why they say what they say. Recently, what did Hridayananda Maharaj say? What was the thing?
With Jiva? Oh, no.
Oh, there was two things. One was the Jiva, one was Śrīla Maharaj. You know, trying to blame Śrīla Maharaj.
Okay, yeah.
And then they say, and he tried to word his way out of it by saying, Śrīla Maharaj said the Guru was the highest authority, but we knew that Prabhupada said the GBC is the highest authority. Yeah, understand? So, there are no lawyers out there who really know. The ones that are out there either don't care about ISKCON, or there's someone like me. And I go, wait a minute. What do you mean, you know the GBC is the highest authority? Because there's this, about a 4.5 year, 4-year period where the GBC is nothing. So when did you know that Prabhupada said that GBC is the highest authority? Because the Guru was the highest authority. And after you all fell down to keep control of power, then you decided that, oh, well, actually the GBC is the highest authority. And just breathed life back into these half a dozen or a dozen GBCs who had no authority. And they were like, yeah, that works. In other words, what do you mean you know?
He threw them all out.
And then by authority, we see that Prabhupada's the highest authority, means the Guru is the highest authority. The Parampara doesn't list GBCs. It lists Krishna, Brahma, Narada, Vyasa. It goes down through a Parampara. It's not like they never had any management before, you know. And technically, he said they're the, what's the word? The authority on, like,
managerial authority.
Managerial authority. And he sometimes fired them. All of them say, you're all nothing. Go home. Go preach. Twice he completely scraped the GBC, like erased the blackboard. What's that mean? Highest authority is Guru, not any voting committee and everything. So he was trying to pull that number, and of course, amongst the people who don't know the history, think, oh yes, you know, the highest authority, the highest authority. That's why I say they are covered Ritviks. They are covered Ritviks. Because they're saying there's some authority for the disciple superior to his guru or her guru. And they're saying that's the GBC. So Śrīla Maharaj said, no amount of darkness produces light. No amount of ignorance produces knowledge. These are fallible people. And what decisions? Okay, when you meet, this body represents Prabhupada. So all those mistakes over the last 40 years, these are Prabhupada's mistakes? Mistakes that you yourself have apologized for? You're admitting that this is just hypocrisy. This is just manipulation of devotees. There's nobody, even there's people out there, no, man, we didn't fall from the spiritual Lila of Krishna. But the rule is, you can believe it, but you can't preach it. You have to, if you want to preach about the jiva, you have to say, we fell from the spiritual world. Remember, books are the basis. Preaching is the essence. Prabhupada never said it once. He heard it and just went, that's it, Then they're doing Mayapur. You know, Prabhupada said, we have recordings, what Śrīla Maharaj says, what books, nothing. Bhavananda said, Prabhupada said, Astashaki. That replaces everything, Astashaki. They lost the plot. The whole plot. And they're just winging it. And now they're going to spend $200 million to prove the world is flat. Should send them the tennis shoes. They'll probably show a picture. See, If the world is flat because our shoes are flat. If the world wasn't flat, shoemakers would make rounded shoes. It's just like... World is flat. Now they're probably going to have to show how the cowherd boys are all sitting around. They're all having lunch with Krishna. No, they've been there forever. They've been there having lunch with Krishna since eternity began, which is beyond forever. And then one cowherd boy goes, God, I'm still hungry. And he looks over at Krishna's plate and goes, gee. And Krishna just looks at him and goes, you envious dog, you pig, you just get the hell out of here and go down to the material world and eat shit. Go, now. Oh, I'm sorry, that won't matter. Go. That's what they want to say. They're probably going to show that in some digital thing, how Krishna's eternal friends or eternal lovers or eternal mothers and fathers became envious. You know, here's what I say. Because they're thinking boys can get envious of each other, right? That's sakyras, right? Friendship. How does a gopi become envious of Krishna? A cowherd boy, right? He's hungry, he sees the laddu, he wants to eat that laddu, right? Okay, he wants to eat Krishna's laddu. How does a gopi become envious of Krishna? There are no, what do you call them? Dīkṣā, what do you call them?
Lesbians.
Lesbians. There are no lesbians in the spiritual world. So what is he talking about? See, well, Krishna is kissing a gopi. So if another gopi wants to be envious of Krishna, that means she wants to kiss the gopi. How does that work? Well, that doesn't work, right? Okay, Mother Yasoda. Mother Yasoda breastfeeds Krishna. So how does an elderly woman become envious of Krishna? The elderly woman in the village wants to suckle the breast of Mother Yasoda. So your envy of Krishna only really works, theoretically, amongst friends. Boys becoming, and that's the example they give. You were having lunch with Krishna, and you became envious of what he had to eat. It's not even worth repeating the story. And he sent you to this material world where you've been here for millions of years trying to find your way home. Rather, the real story is Mṛdaṅga, he's having lunch with Krishna, and he has an insatiable appetite for ladus. And Krishna, from his plate, has an infinite amount of ladus. And he's always flicking them over. Mṛdaṅga is just gulping them right out the air. They're snatching them and eating them, right? But one day, Krishna toys with him. No, you've had enough laddu. I'm not giving you anything. Then Mṛdaṅga said, well, yeah, but if the ladies give you ladus because of your dress. They're attracted by your dress. If I had that dress, I could give more ladus. You're nobody special. It's your dress. So then Krishna says, okay, here. And they change clothes. So Mṛdaṅga thinks, this is great. And he makes a beeline for the village. He's got the yellow dhoti and the bullhorn, the flute. He's got his paraphernalia. And he's making it to the village where he can then fool the ladies and just get ladus. Okay? But at the same time, Kamsa is sending Denakasura, the ass demon, horse demon. And he's sending Denakasura to Vrindavan to kill Krishna. So the demon says, how do I know which one of the boys is Krishna? He says, well, you'll recognize him. He wears a yellow dhoti. He's got a peacock feather. He's got a flute in his mouth. So the horse comes charging into Vrindavan. And who does he see? Mṛdaṅga hustling towards the village to get ladus. So he rushes towards him and he spins around the horse and he gives a kick. And some stories say he hit him in the chest. Some stories say just the wind blew Mṛdaṅga back about 10 or 15 meters into the dust. And he saw this horse and he goes, oh God. And he turned around and he ran back to Krishna and he goes, here, you can have it. It's not worth it, really. I tell you, this is more trouble than it's worth. Then Krishna puts back on his own clothes and he goes and kills that demon. And all the boys are enjoying the pastimes with Krishna. But there's the example of someone wanting to eat what's on Krishna's plate. It's just absolutely beyond ridiculous. And philosophically, it plays into the hand of every Mayavadi there ever was. That even if there is a Goloka, it's not infallible. Envy enters there. But in Brahman, there is no envy. Yeah. It's admission that the spiritual world is fallible. You follow? Fallible. You can fall down from there. Then we fast forward the play, and Ishwar goes back to the spiritual world. Man, that was a long journey. Huh? And then he goes, hey, Giri, haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, well, you remember what happened a long time ago, right? Down the material world and all these things. Yeah, I'm back now. Krishna says, yeah, once you come back, you never go again. So, whoo, I'm ready. I'm here. And then he goes, Giri, have you ever, what happened to me? Have you ever, Giri goes, no. And then Ishwar goes, well, aren't you a little concerned? That could happen at any day. But me, I already did it. I'm back. Krishna says, once you return, you never go back to the material world. So I'm good. I'm never going to. But it could happen to you at any day. Why don't you just do it and get it over with? How do you live with them? Today it's lunchtime. Yeah, I don't know. Should I look? This might be my day. Then it becomes better that you just go and get it over with, because now when you get back, now it's forever, 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 forever. But, oh, gee, you haven't fallen yet. Could happen at any day. Doesn't that bother you? And the guy gets, yeah, I'm a little nervous today. I don't know if I should go to lunch, I mean, think it through. I mean, it isn't so mystical that you can't understand anything. Tulsi, everybody. And they cite Tulsi. Tulsi comes to this world as a queen. And there's this whole drama between Vishnu and everything. And then there's curses and counter curses. And Vishnu becomes Shaligram. And Tulsi becomes the plant. And then the two are married, and the Shaligram Puja marries Tulsi. And they say that the proof that anyone can fall is Tulsi fell from the spiritual world.
Tulsi and Sridham.
Brinda Devi.
Yeah, and Sridham. Sridham became the demon she married, and Tulsi became...
Yeah, Sridham. No, Sridham, not the... Subal's the brother of Rādhārāṇī. Sridham is just friend.
Yeah.
But this caliber of devotee, they're citing as examples how they became envious of Krishna. Just they don't understand anything. These are examples. So... And how is that possible? Because they called Śrīla Mahārāja Mayavadi when he explained the origin of the unit of consciousness, according to Bhaktivinoda. They called him a Mayavadi. So because of that aparad, they have now accepted that philosophy as the thing that makes their sampradāya different. And they attributed this to Prabhupada had this realization above anybody else in the history of the sampradāya. And you can't convince them otherwise, because they're forced to believe it as a result of their offenses. You might not understand the right thing. That's okay. But once you reject the right thing, you will automatically accept the wrong thing. And if you do it, reject it. Not just the wrong idea, but the person who gave the idea, and Krishna, and the arrangement of Krishna, you reject that. That becomes an aparad. Then you preach against other people who have the right understanding and interfere with people's face and browbeat them, like taking, you ever seen those movies like the Joker, the guy comes over, he grabs the Joker, grabs his head and smacks it onto the table and makes the coin disappear?
The pencil.
The pencil, yeah. You ever seen that? That's what they do to people. They just kind of smack their head. Now do you understand? Yeah, right, I understand. We felt. They browbeat people, intimidate people, and smash their head into the thing, yeah. And that further compounds their offense. Śrīla Mahārāja said, those who interfere with the developing faith of others create the most grievous offense. And they call Śrīla Mahārāja Mayavadi. They said he was envious of Prabhupada. Yeah, who is envious of Prabhupada? You invite me to that conversation. No, they don't want to talk to me. Or anybody even like me. No, my beard scares them away. No, it's like, yeah, it is what it is. That's what happened. And our mission is not to just browbeat that point. But as devotees, you know, gradually, I think some of you need to know why things are the way they are, who's who did what, why, what, and where. Otherwise, why are we out here? Why are we here? Why are we here? Why aren't we in part of the Mexico City? Why aren't we part of Guadalajara? Why don't we go to Rath Yatra? Why? There's a reason why. And it's much deeper than most people today. They're like in the kiddie end of the pool. You know, when you take your kids to the pool, you put them in the part that's just deep. You know, they have a good time. But we're adults, and we're meant for the deep end of not the pool, but the ocean. And there's no such ocean out there for these people. It's just the kiddie end of the pool. And therefore, mosh pits and kirtan, wild dancing, all create women will become swamis.
Krishna rock.
Krishna rock, you know, sitting on the Vyasa-san in shorts and everything. It's just like, oh my God. Crazy. And then tell people we left Prabhupada. They have never made a song about Prabhupada. They have never written special mantras for Prabhupada. They have never made an artik song for Prabhupada. And the so-called books that they wrote about Prabhupada, like the Lila-mrita, have just faded into oblivion as being like not very substantial at all. In fact, even the stories are not, a lot of them aren't true and everything. Our mission, on the other hand, has written mantras, songs, artik songs, and books and articles, and then stood up and defended ISKCON against the Narayanis, against Casco Swamis, against, what's his name, Pandu, against Madhvas, Narayana Maharaj, a whole bunch of, they haven't done anything. We're the ones that did. And anytime they tried to defend, they get massacred. Now, we're not the only ones that know that. A lot of people in ISKCON do know that. You know? And they're a very fragmented and divided thing. So, our purpose is not to be big. It's to be right. Because it's not size that went awry. Awry means got off on the wrong track. ISKCON is big. It's always been big since about the 4th or 5th year. It was big. It's just got bigger. There are more devotees there than ever. But it's not right. It means there's so many things that are wrong, both in behavior, in conception, in practice. Like you see in Bombay, they'll do this, not every time, but I've seen myself many times. You're chanting the mahā-mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, in front of Radha Krishna. And as it goes, Hare Ram, they run over in front of Sita Ram. Hare Ram, 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 Hare, then back over Hare Krishna, and then run over here. Between they have an altar in the middle with Radha Krishna, Radha Rasabihari, and then Sita Ram and Lakshman. And so their chanting Rama is Hare Rama. And then behind the scene, they got the pujaris. And one pujaris, I'm a Gaur Bhakta, Gaur Nitai Bhakta. Other pujaris, I'm a Radha Krishna Bhakta. Other pujaris, I'm a Ram Bhakta. My question is Bhakta period. Is there any real Bhakta even there? This is just Hinduism. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. Can you imagine Śrīla Mahārāja giving initiation to 500 people at a time? Would never happen.
No.
Never happened. And somebody said somebody gave initiation to 5,000 people at a time?
No, not 5,000.
No, not 5,000. They
They
bring
bring 500 disciples, but not 5,000
1,000 at a time. But
Yeah.
recently, one Swami in ISKCON, Guru in Delhi, gave initiation to 400 people at a time. Now, what's 16 into 400? Well, that's a lot. He'd have been chanting on people's beads for days and days and days, right? 16 a day to be chanted as because nobody chants more than 16 rounds there. It's just like 16, it's almost an offense to chant more. You know? It's because 16 is the skeleton key to back to Godhead. You gotta understand. It's the magic number, you know. Anyway, I get going on that. I feel like, you know, what's that guy's name? Muhammad Ali. Bring on, bring on.
Beat the kid.
Yeah, to some of you might say, yeah, whatever, but we lived through it. We were with Śrīla Prabhupāda. We were part of that. It had its defects, it had its problems, but it's none that he created. It was just like being around the glowing orb, and then they just buried it, and then produced this other thing and said, the glowing orb. And it's like, if you know what the glowing orb was, you know, no, it isn't. That's not it. That's not what he said. That's not what he did. That's not what he wanted. No, it is. And you don't understand because you left him. One boy asked me once, he said, Maharaj, why don't you come up to Krishna-lila in the temple? I go, no, I don't want to create a disturbance. He goes, no, nobody cares. This was like 20 years ago, 23 years ago. I go, nobody cares? Why should I go where nobody cares? You know, do you live in the street where nobody cares? Well, you might pass through the street, but you go home, where your family is, where people, you love them, they love you. They're, you know, if you said, oh, you know, you go back the way, but nobody cares. You don't mean you don't care, your kids don't care. Why would you want to go back there? If nobody cares, you know? So I told him, nobody cares? That's the reason I should come to the temple? I said, you know, actually, it's smaller, but it's a lot better than what you got. You know, because that's all they had. Oh, they left Prabhupada. What the? Smack those punks in the face. But then what have they done to defeat them? All over these years, people who have attacked the sampradāya, attacked Prabhupada, what have they done to defend it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, yeah. And somebody asked me, why are you so mean and nasty? I said, they did it. I was just a humble brahmachari like Jagat Guru Das here. Just interested in serving. In fact, like he wants to get into the gardening and everything like that, which is really good. We're going to talk about that later. I was into cleaning kitchens. I had a toolkit for cleaning kitchens, taking the stove apart. I did super jobs. You know, drains, things that clean, everything. I had this toolkit. I was like a roto-rooter man, the guy you call when the plumbing's all mucked up, you know. And I went to the GBC in 1970 and I said, I want to get a van, I want to get 3 guys to work with me, and we'll travel all around America cleaning kitchens. Now, if I would have been saying, I'll go to the farms and I'll grow food, they'd have probably went, wow, that might be a good idea, you know. But they looked at me like, whoa, traveling kitchen cleaner. So, yeah. I didn't fit in even. In the beginning when I took sannyas, after a few morning walks, actually I didn't go on morning walk. I could go on any morning walk, but I realized this is just a game. There's just some game going on in these morning walks. People trying to show the other devotees who's who. I'm on the walk with Prabhupada. So, yeah, I went on a few. But I stayed back on a few and didn't go by my own choice. And just was part of the Kirtan to greet Prabhupada when he come back to the temple. I once volunteered to clean the steps of the brahmachari ashram after I took sannyas. And some other sannyasis looked at my name on the list of cleaners and just were laughing. What is this? He's cleaning. And one day, though, It's a long story short, but 2 days in a row, Prabhupada's Guru Puja was neglected. The first day was terrible. The second day, he just walked up to the Vyasasana and kept walking, went to his room. And I realized, oh, this is ridiculous. So I had like $120 to my name. That's a lot back then. And I went out and I bought $100 worth of flowers. I mean, it was so many flowers. And I was plucking, making the rose petals. I had 3 baskets like this with rose petals. I had garlands, over 20 garlands made from the best of flowers, then decoration. And during the Mangal Artik in the morning, I was, arranging flowers, and that same sannyasi who laughed about me being clean, he was like, this is what the women do, man. The women take care of flowers. What's he doing? And I just I just laughed. Then Prabhupada went on the morning walk, and I didn't go. And I set up everything so that when he would come back, there would be a proper Guru Puja reception. And when he came, I was at the front of the temple, which has 2 big marble lions on the steps. And he pulled up in his white ambassador, and I had first rose petals. And I was throwing, they're just trickling down, red leaves on his car. And he came up out of the car, and the flowers were falling all over him, and he just smiled, and then he started towards the steps. And I was throwing like this, handfuls, and making a red carpet out of rose petals. And he's coming across, he got to the middle of the floor, and my basket went empty. And he stopped and he went, like, what now? And I had another basket already ready. And he smiled, and I took him all the way to his seat. Then he sat down. Then I gave flower garlands to everybody. The garlands were going up to here and taking them off, and this and that. And then everybody coming and throwing flowers. And when he was sitting cross-legged on the Vyasasana, the rose petals were up to here. You could not see his legs or his feet. It was like this, right? And we're just standing right here. Pujari's right there. We're all in close, maybe about that far. No, not closer even than that. And 30 devotees behind. Everybody's really close. And there's this Kirtan going on. And I'm chanting it up here, kartals, and all of a sudden, I feel flowers falling on me. And I open my head, and Prabhupada is standing on his Vyasasana. He grabbed the flowers like this, stood up, reached over, and dumped them on my head, right in front of everybody. And everybody else is just like, I was like in shock. And they just like that. And then he sat back down. Now, usually what he would do is throw flowers to everybody. He didn't. That day he didn't throw any flowers. He grabbed a bunch, stood up on the Vyasasana, dumped them on my head, and sat back down and continued. So it's quite a shock to those people who were laughing at me for doing some service. Understand? But there were so many games inside of ISKCON you just don't even imagine. The games that were played. Whether it was to get a bigger zone or some honor or trying to become a guru. You know, all this stuff, it was just like, oh, so just like, people thought about suicide. People did do suicide. Suicide. Because the thing they were a part of just became so bizarre, they couldn't even tolerate their own life anymore. And I was so glad, and Vishnu Maharaj was so glad when we came to the shelter of Śrīla Maharaj. It was like, oh my God, sanity, sanity, premium Krishna consciousness. And it just made all this other stuff look ridiculous. It was so funny. These guys gilded gold, garlands of $100 bills, even getting crowns like they were kings and all this stuff, and carrying scepters with jewels in them. And Śrīla Maharaj is rubbing up against the wall and rubbing the paint off the wall with his head. And when one devotee wanted to repaint the wall, they said, don't do that. You don't know how that paint got rubbed off. Śrīla Maharaj sitting there chanting the holy name, rubbing his head on the wall. You know, it's like, don't do that. That's sacred space. I wouldn't doubt if that part of the wall is still like that. I mean,
You have that picture of Śrīla Mahārāja taking prasadam. He's sitting in a chair like this, and they just put a cushion on it and all of this. You can see at the bottom.
It's all broken. Yeah. All the paint's falling off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, well, no, man, you had to have, you know, what is this? You know, you need to put gold feet on these chairs and feed the gurus. It's silver and gold and all this stuff. But when they opened their mouth, it was just a sham. And when Śrīla Mahārāja opened his mouth to speak, it was like an ocean of mercy coming to claim you. Yeah, so jokes on them. And people will say now, oh, well, you know, Prabhupada never intended it to be very deep. I said, what are you talking about? No, he wanted it to just be very big and engage the masses. And all this. Oh, really? So in 1972, he wrote a letter that said, we have enough temples, enough devotees. Now's the time to boil the milk. Nothing changed. Absolutely nothing changed. In fact, it just kept going. Book distribution was everything. Then Sankirtan reduced to almost nothing, to the weekly Sankirtan. It used to be every day, every temple, every devotee, every day, going out chanting. And everything changed. Never boiled the milk. Never. What does it mean, boil the milk? It means increase. Not increase this way, increase this way. Yeah. Thicken, deepen.
Condense.
That's ridiculous. And then they go, even my godbrother, my godbrother, anyway, here's a, Prabhupada said, and he gives this quote. I said, no way Prabhupada knew what he's quoting. He's just translating. It was one of those near the Burdwan line, there's such and such temple and the relative. And people read these things in Caitanya-caritāmṛta and they think Prabhupada, oh yeah, Prabhupada said. It's like, yes. Now, where did he get this information? Oh, he's Prabhupada, he was new. No, he's translating his guru. It's like, say, you translate something I said in from one of my books into Spanish, right? And you say, Guru Maharaj said, right? But if you look close, you'll see I'm quoting Śrīla Maharaj. And if you look close, he's quoting Bhakti, and keep looking close. No, they don't look close. Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada said, and there's so much in there, I tell you, you can go page after 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 page. I can do this till breakfast before you can highlight something that Prabhupada said. He's translating Bhakti Vinod, Bhakti Siddhanta. He's translating the purports. And they just think, oh, he said. So it's like, observe. It's not taking anything away from him. Observe the parampara. Then you have a verse in Caitanya-caritāmṛta. It potentially could be the deepest rasic verse, whole Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Potentially. There's no purport to it. Why? Because Bhakti Siddhanta didn't make a purport to it. Why? Because Bhakti Vinod didn't make a purport to it. And the verse describes Kirtan after Ratha Yatra. First it goes to Gundicha. After that it goes to the Nrsimhadev temple. After that it goes to this garden. I forget the name of the garden. It's a coconut garden. Vishnu Maharaj and I made special endeavor to go there. But Govinda Maharaj said, it's very different. That was 500 years ago, you know. But we had to go to that place. And there was a Gaudiya Mutt temple there. Because slowly all the devotees, tired and exhausted, and just sat down on the ground. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu alone continued the Kirtan with Lord Nityananda. But at a time, this is right there in Chaitanya. But at a time, Lord Chaitanya is ecstatic, dancing and running around in this garden between the coconut trees and everything, got lost. Lord Nityananda lost sight of him. And he was looking here and there, and then following the voice, he came around and he saw Lord Chaitanya was standing there, and Lord Chaitanya turned into Rādhārāṇī. Seeing that, Lord Nityananda went back, did not continue forward. So who is Guru? Guru represents Lord Nityananda. No guru has commented on that verse because Lord Nityananda himself turned around and went away. Who is Nityananda? He is Balaram. Balaram never approaches any place where Rādhārāṇī is alone. If with Krishna, Balaram may go there. But if he chances upon and sees Rādhārāṇī by herself, he turns around and goes the other direction. But there's no comment by Prabhupada because there's no comment by Bhaktisiddhanta because there's no comment by Bhaktivinoda. Therefore, Prabhupada makes no comment. But it's probably the most under-noticed verse in the whole Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Well, they don't know what to make of it one way or the other. Now, if you point it out to somebody in that group, they'll probably end up writing a commentary on it, just to exalt themselves, instead of understanding what it is we're supposed to be giving, what any of this is. I mean, we use the word massacre. It's a massacre. You know what a massacre is? Oh, man. You don't want to go and look where there's been a massacre. It's a mess. Bloody mess. Carnage everywhere. They have massacred the Hare Krishna movement. And some little piece of it still exists. Popular, spreading, lots of people in Kirtan. It's all about numbers, right? The biggest one is this Poland festival. They call it the Poland Woodstock. It isn't a good name because Woodstock, people got killed and everything in Woodstock. That's not a good name. But anyway, and it's like, yeah, 50,000 people chanting Hare Krishna. So I finally got one day to talk to the people that run that thing. And the Swami that runs it says, well, you know, it isn't all that it looks like. He said, practically all those people are on LSD, PCP, smoking dope, hashish. It's just a big drug party. And at midnight, when everybody's rocked out, stoned out of their heads, the devotees do this Kirtan on stage and you get the whole crowd chanting Hare Krishna. Then that goes around the world. It's like, wow, we got everybody chanting Hare Krishna. Where's the quality? Then he also said, well, we actually lose as many devotees as we make. Because, yeah, it's not a good place, you know. But on the surface, it looks like amazing. But I said to him, I said, well, I saw that film of your festival. It's pretty amazing. He goes, well, you know, it's not really what it looks like. On camera, it looks great. So much of it is like that. And we get emails, not all the time, but every year, at least a couple. People that should know asking. Like, you know, when so-and-so was going to initiate, or he had initiated, and then he was asking me, he said, well, you know, could you explain, what is the meaning of hari-nāma? Like a question like today. So I was thinking, oh, that's nice that he's asking. But you're giving and you don't know. You're giving hari-nāma, but you don't know why they're taking hari-nāma. How about yourself? Why did you take a look at it from that self perspective? What is hari-nāma? What was it? What did you gain there? What is the purpose of that? You know, hey, you're a guru, you should be able to answer this question. They do so many things. No idea. Only, I think there's samosas with incredible tamarind chutney today for lunch. It's all about. And if you pay 70 rupees, you can have lunch with the guru. Hey, let's raise some money for Babaji here. If you want to sit at this end of the table next to me, it'd be 50 pesos. Jack, you don't have to sit way down there at the end. You got a little extra money, you come up here and sit next to Guruji and take bhajana. No, that's my part. You pay, you play. How much you pay, you can even eat with the guru. I said, what is this? Why don't the guru go eat with everybody else? That would be a better move. No, you pay to come up 2 floors up and eat with him. Yeah? It's like, wow, what a place. People say, is he still complaining? I go, evil things never die. We just get bigger microphones.
Controversy Swami, that's what they call you.
Yeah, I've been called that controversy Swami.
They create the controversy, you deal with it.
Right, I didn't start it. I didn't make the controversy. I didn't say it. But we don't spend our whole time on this. We don't have websites against it. Every once in a while we write obvious articles. Come on, what are you doing? You know, I can't just sit back and watch you just smear mud all over Prabhupada's movement and say, oh, that's very nice. It's not very nice. It's the temple of misunderstanding. And none of the leaders will ditto it, although Guru Prasad Swami says, well, you have a lot to offer and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, other people, intelligent people, also write in. We don't publish those things for everybody to see how many people write in and say, amazing, spot on. Yeah, we get a lot of those from both Śrīla Mahārāja's disciples, Prabhupada disciples, and second generation devotees. There, if there's any hope for ISKCON, it's in the newcomers that didn't swallow the Kool-Aid. That's who will change ISKCON long after I'm gone. It won't be any of these old people. None of them. None of them. They can't do anything. They've all got to just go. And maybe from another generation, just like Gaudiya Math did fall into the slumber of laziness in a sense. You can't say that now. You seen the latest thing with Modi and the auditorium, and they put 100,000 people in an auditorium to hear Modi and glorify Lord Chaitanya, and it was for the 100-year anniversary of Gaudiya Math. Yeah? They ain't sleeping no more. They woke up. So in the same thing, maybe in future, you know, people will just get it right. Or at least it's right in parts already. You know, there are some, like ISKCON devotees and temples that we could go to and it would be perfectly nice. But then that would just create something, give the impression, oh, why he's coming to our temples? You don't have anything I want, not even the money, nothing. Nothing that interests me, nothing. But there are people in those groups that take interest in what we have. Even Siddha Swarup, he had, what was his name, Tushta. Tushta was getting all the books, reading all the books that we have. Then wrote and said, oh, you're a great scholar. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just a fool. But I listened real close to what my gurus had to say, and I just share that with you. So.
You once said there were two things you hate the most, and both of them are scholars.
Yeah. It's not a compliment to call a Vaishnava a scholar, although people like Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada wasn't a scholar. He wasn't a scholar. He was a householder. He was a fired-up disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta. He was not a scholar. Remember what I said about Sanskrit? Everybody studies Sanskrit in India, especially go back 50 or 50, go back 100 years. Yeah. He wasn't a scholar. And they say, you know, Prabhupada's books. Well, Prabhupada's books are 90% just translation. Almost the whole Nectar of Devotion is just a summary translation. Paragraph by paragraph. There's a paragraph. He didn't write that. He just translated that. Translation, 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 translation. And then he says something. You go, that's original. It is so rare, actually. He's summary translating. He's reading 3 translations and summarizing that. And sometimes not even doing that. He's just translating Bhakti Vinod. And sometimes he says, Bhakti Vinod says. But that gets redundant when everything you're saying is Bhakti Vinod or Bhakti Siddhanta. It's like I say things, and we'll never say, Śrīla Maharaj said, Prabhupada said. But a bona fide disciple, the only thing he does is change maybe the vehicle of presentation. The example. He might create a fresher example, like, you know, Prabhupada is writing, and the man who pulls tela. What the hell's a tela? He's talking about the mudha, you know, the person of lower consciousness. And he compares him to a man who pulls tela. What's a tela? I don't know what a tela is. You know what a tela is? Well, if you're from Bengal, you know what a tela is. It's that big rickshaw that a man pulls like a donkey, and it's piled up with hundreds of kilos of goods, and he drags that thing through the market in his bare feet wearing a gumshoe, sweating like a pig. That's a tela. Right? It's just like we're reading. And the hogs and dogs that eat stew.
Night soil.
Yeah. Don't step in the night soil. You know what night soil is? Prabhupada mentions night soil, hogs and dogs that eat school. I mean, I didn't ever see a dog eat stools, caca. They eat all this stuff from the restaurants and all this stuff. The pig farmers get all this stuff from restaurants. They have bags of good stuff they feed the puercos, right? Dogs? Dogs eat shit. Where? Vrindavan, India. Yes. So next time I write a book, I'll say, you know, something about the hogs and dogs that eat stools. It's like, what is he talking about? Kela, hog and dog. So those are the only things that a disciple should change. The medium of the example of whatever knowledge you're trying to share. So, but to change that, I mean, they've changed everything. Subtly, grossly, so many changes. Society consciousness rules, society voting rules. You have the GBC. They, together, they are Prabhupada. That's the philosophy. All right? So they vote on something. 51%, that follows the vote. Right? Does that mean that the other 49%, they didn't represent Prabhupada? And that's why they were outvoted? And there's some guys that are in the 49% all the time. So you would think, get these guys out. Because they don't represent Prabhupada. Only the majority of vote represents Prabhupada. So then you would want to have a system in order to pass anything. If this body represents Prabhupada, then they have to agree on something 100%. Because you can't say, well, the 1% that didn't vote for it, he doesn't represent Prabhupada, but the 99% does. Maybe it's the other way around. How do you know? You know, this is bogus. That's how you know. The whole idea is bogus. People make mistakes. But to keep ISKCON from total revolt in 1982, they adopted this philosophy that the GBC body, when it meets, represents the will of Prabhupada. So when they had the meeting to sell the New York building, the Manhattan building, how many stories was that? 11-story building in Manhattan. They had a vote to sell it. That was, if there was a physical achievement anywhere on planet Earth, to have that building from landing on a boat with 40 rupees in hand to 12 years, 11 years later, having a mini skyscraper in Manhattan from which to preach Krishna consciousness, that was an achievement. That was, and they sold it. So did that represent the will of Prabhupada? How's that fly? This is all nonsense. People don't even listen and question. What do you mean? Like I saw this one thing, I think I put it on my WhatsApp. Ask real questions. Demand real answers. Yeah? Well, that's just out in the world today. Question, RT, Russian television says, question more. You know, questions, listen to the answer. Oh, wait a minute, that's no answer. You're just, you know, demand answers. It's your right. It's your life. No. They just, and they've created a class of people who don't think. They don't think. And you'll find that Prabhupada's whole mission was to create a thinking class of men and women. Thinkers. People who could think. And who could lead. And who could show by example. Now you got love bomb gurus. They meet you, first time they hug you. If you go to a program, they'll hug you 3 times. So what is this guy? I don't even know this guy. He's hugging me. Love bombers. So anyway, you get me on these things because you have to understand there's a big piece of my life. And Vishnu Maharaj and some of the others here, a big piece of our life. And to see it become what it is, and so, it doesn't matter. No, it matters. It matters. And anybody, we care. We don't attack. We care. We say, you got cancer. They go, don't say that. Anyway, as it deals with philosophy and other things, I would say over half of the material that we've written has to do with helping them correct their understanding of some particular thing. Omniscience, misconceptions that are preached. And
Jiva.
Huh?
The jiva.
Yeah, it's almost every single article.
Every touch.
Everything. Worship of Govardhan.
You're talking about the fall bodies. You talked a bit about that in this class, and there was one instance where our old friend Rupananda, he was told by Prabhupada, don't teach that we came from Brahman, because that's what he was teaching. So
Right.
how can we, what was Prabhupada's intention?
Well, first off, the Siddha was a Mayavadi of sorts, you know, Kundalini, Mayavadi. And, you know, you let a little air in the window, but then the scorpions can come in, you know. So better just keep the window shut for now. So, yeah, that was, you know, what's out there first in the whole hippie world and everybody is this Kundalini and Brahman and pure light and all this stuff. And then Krishna says, I am the source of the impersonal Brahman, which is the source of all living entities. Well, don't emphasize that. He's going because people are going to go this way. We're emphasizing this way, right? Just, we come from Krishna. Don't emphasize this. And there was a time, it was him and Gaurasindar, actually. They went on a tour, and they did create havoc with this. Because all the devotees are coming in from, you know, just like you were connected, or not connected, but in that Hindu temple and that bogey yogi and all that kind of stuff. Well-intended, but nonetheless Hindus. Right. Not real Vaishnavism and everything like that. We all came from something, Shivananda, just something. You know, Buddhism, something. And that kind of preaching just rung other bells in everybody's head. And Prabhupada, from what I've seen, he didn't want to give any scope for the Mayavadi. But if he was still here today and this issue arose, he would not be beating this drum that they beat. You know, we fell from the eternal Lila of Krishna. He would not be beating that drum. So in the course of just establishing, shortcuts are taken, were taken, things left. But for example, I made this point in my last letter to Guru Prasad Swami, right? I said, well, he says, well, you know, Prabhupada didn't emphasize Gaur Radha Madhava. I said, he didn't emphasize a lot of things. Some things he never said that became very emphasized. Some things he said once, maybe, became very emphasized. Some things he said nothing about, like the sannyas mantra. You take sannyas, you get a mantra. Should we think it has no meaning because he didn't want the speaker emphasize it? He didn't say anything about it. He didn't say nothing. So is that what your conception should be? Nothing? When you get this mantra, it'll light your eyeballs up. This is like, oh my God, this is the top of the crop of the mantras in our sampradāya. And he said nothing about it. So is that supposed to mean, and if you know something about it, you heard it from somebody else. You heard it from me, Śrīla Mahārāja, or Narayan Mahārāja. Because we're the only ones who have ever written anything about it. And Mahanidhi.
Who got it from somebody else?
Who's writing from somebody else. Nothing. So what does all that mean? So what it means is, it's this. Prabhupada is 70 years old. He's coming to America. It's Malecha. Nobody knows nothing. He's at the fag end of life. He just had a heart attack on the way over. He could die at any minute. And he ain't got time to go into all the details. In fact, he gives the first Artik song. It's wrong. You read the first Hare Krishna songbook, and the song of Bhakti Vinod is wrong. It's missing parts. Why? Because he didn't bring a songbook with him. Simple as that. And he couldn't remember the whole song. And so the song he taught us was mostly the song, but it was missing about 20%.
2 verses missing.
2 verses missing. So later, though, later, what did this guy do? They got the actual songbook of Bhakti Vinod. They went, oh, look at this. So the next time they made a songbook, they had the full song, right? So you can't say Prabhupada gave everything, explained everything. It's emphasized everything that was important. That's not true. And the history is there. And that the GBC is the highest spiritual authority, that's not true, because he demonstrated that it wasn't when he just took their decisions in 1976 and threw them in the trash can and said, have another meeting. Above, and it wasn't just because it was his movement. Really? Is it his movement? It wasn't his movement. He wrote the letters and said, this is not my movement. This is the movement of my Guru Maharaj. He's the one that started this. I'm just his messenger. Duh. But they just want to make it the Adbhūta Mandira. You want to build this big temple in Mayapur, right? It's going to cost you $200 million. You're $100 million short. So you're going to go out and collect money in the world. Well, you've got Prabhupada going to build this temple and everything like that, right? That's all cool. But if you can say, this is the temple that Jiva Goswami manifested in the vision of Narottam, and who was it?
No, it's Nityananda and Jiva Goswami.
Nityananda manifested this vision to Jiva Goswami. And later Bhaktivinoda had this vision. And we are building the temple that is this vision. And if you're part of that, you're going to go back to Godhead. And then people, whoa, whoa, dig deep, man, dig deep. Now give, right? And so they've just taken the story of the Adbhūta Mandira and applied it to their own collection, and they're collecting millions of dollars. But they're not building the Adbhūta Mandira. It already got built. Oh, then that's not important.
Yeah.
That's not important. It's just not a temple. It's a temple on the birth site of Lord Chaitanya. Not a kilometer down the road in the rice fields. The Adbhūta Mandira, if you read these articles, is a specific temple in a particular vision on a particular place. All completed in 1933. But they steal the story because when you're in Australia and Canada and the United States collecting money, you got to have this story for the Hindus. This isn't just a big temple we want to build. Lots of people in India are building temples. One temple was recently built, 4 tons of gold in India. 4 tons of gold was smeared over this temple. It sits on an acre. The walkways, the pillar, the building, first off, it's immaculate carved granite stone, and then it's gilded in gold. 4 tons of gold on the temple.
Where's that?
It's in Vellore, on the way to Chennai. Now you can see it online. Amazing, amazing. And other temples with gold and just all this stuff. So the Hindus are like, yeah. So to add to it, they're telling them, no, we're building the temple that was envisioned. God sent a vision, and you're helping to build that temple. So the Hindus are like, yeah, writing the checks and throwing the money in there because there's false promises, of the greatness that they're going to get by doing this. What is that? Good business. Good business. Now that's what I say. My challenge is prove me wrong, and I'll be happy to accept it. So, yeah. Anyway, that is part of our thing. But I don't expect everybody else to get in the argument, at all. In fact, you shouldn't. Until I am no more and somebody challenges you for what we do, what you do, what I had written. Then, if you don't know what's in these books, and most of you, well, not all of you, but a good chunk of you have never even read these books. You don't even know what I'm talking about. The argument, all these things that happened. It's all contained in the proper understanding and the proper presentation. It's all in the books that we have. Particularly Śrīla Mahārāja's books, etc., etc. But then I've pulled these things from even beyond the books and put them in our own books. And for the Mṛdaṅga thing, that was just Vishnu Maharaj and Giri. They handled that completely. The Mṛdaṅga's attacking our sampradāya. And that's all online. I don't know how many articles are there, but there's Quite a few, the whole thing.
Pilot.
And Jayadvaita, when he teaches the Bhaktivedanta course for the Bhaktivedanta certificate, when he gets to the part of study of the Madhva Sampradaya, he refers all of his students to our website. So this is it, right? This is who we are, why we are, da 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 da. One GBC, one year, I think it was Malati. Malati suggested to the GBC that Narasingha Maharaja's disciples have dealt with the Madhva so expertly, they deserve a medal of honor, some recognition, some appreciation, official, for defending Prabhupada and our parampara. And you know what the reply was? Yes, but because they're not an ISKCON, we cannot give them recognition.